Okay. So I'm gonna record this so you have a basically just like a thing you can look over um, in the future when you want to. But you've booked 3 sessions with me, I think.
Yeah.
So how we can do this is a couple of different ways. You're the first person who's booked like 3 sessions in a row, so we'll vibe check it really, and see how things go. But we could do it in a couple ways. We can focus on one specific thing, for like a week or two or however long you want to wait in between each session, or we can focus on lots of different things, kind of all at the same time. Um, it totally depends as you as a player how much like effort and time and stuff that you want to put in. For some people, they might struggle with doing a lot at the same time. For some people, it might be easier. For some people, they might just want to get something done completely mastered. So it's totally up to you on how you kind of want to do the 3 sessions. Um, but for this first one, I've got basically a few notes, and it's basically what I would do for the first session for anyone really. It's just like I get an idea of who you are as a player, how you play, things like this, and I write a couple notes, and yeah. So how are you feeling about things?
Um, I mean, pretty all right, I guess. Kind of a roller coaster as always with tech FPS and balancing with other shit. So there's
Yeah.
that. But
How do you mean?
like uh, just, I go to college for computer science.
Okay.
And as of this year, I dropped aerospace. So I was originally a double major for both aerospace and computer science. As you can imagine, it's not
Wow.
exactly
That's
the
a lot of work.
easy. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
exactly the easiest course load. And also this past summer, like I got into aim training,
Okay.
because I'd been stagnant for I don't know a long time in tech FPS, I guess.
Okay.
Because like I mean, I think you can see from my tracker, but basically I peaked like almost MO3, like MO2, like high MO2. But this was episode 7, I think,
Mm.
almost now. And I've gotten back to MO2, I think, maybe, like just barely, but then like insta lose it. And so that was part of that. I after the initial period of aim training, there was one act where I did play a lot better, but I haven't been able to replicate that since.
Okay.
Whether or not that has to do with how I've changed as a player, I don't actually know. The one thing I will say is I think like back when I first like peaked in MO2, like that area, I would say like I would consider myself, I know this is not a correct term after being part of the aim training community, but like back then what you would just call like very like calm, smooth aimer
Mm.
in terms of like almost zero tension, but at the same time, it almost always came at the detriment that I had like very little flick speed, right? And at, I guess if I even like watch back some of my old clips now, like I was a lot more stable, yes, but like at the speed at which I was moving my mouse was diabolically like slow.
Mm.
So part of that adjustment is I've become just obviously a little more shaky naturally, going from palm to claw, but also just because naturally moving faster means more tension to
Mm.
some extent, right? Obviously it's not the full story, but that's part of it. But another thing is I'm like, mm, how do I put it? Like it's hard sometimes to incorporate aim training like into the game, if that makes sense. Like
Yep.
when I'm shooting with a rifle and whatnot, like in game,
Mm.
it's like fine, I think. A big issue I have is with like single fire guns. I've mentioned this in like talks with Viscos and Shimmy, but
Mm.
like part of my problem is like with a rifle, it looks fine, but when I switch to like a pistol, like Ghost, Deagle, Classic, um, I get into this like habit, and this is just from old Counter-Strike, and this is the same how it's always been for me, but I would very rarely on single fire guns like track my targets, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I would just shoot, flick again, shoot, flick to correct again, shoot, like, and there was like, so every time it'd just be like, okay, how good is my aim that day on pistol round, right? Or how good is my pre-aim at that
Mm.
point? Because like if I miss the first shot, my pistol duel almost either always is like into like four body shots or just like whiff everything. You know what I mean? But
Mm.
like I think part of that just comes down to when there's a single fire gun, I don't get into the habit of tracking and I can't like figure out why.
Okay.
So that's one thing. That's like a big thing that I've noticed in my own gameplay. And then the other big thing that I've mentioned to you is like my movement in duels is like pretty bad. In general.
Right.
I exposed to too many angles. I've been trying to work on it in deathmatch a little, but like
Okay.
obviously all this habits of wide swinging all these years is not exactly like the
Yeah.
easiest
Yeah. I
thing to
get
get
you.
rid of.
Yeah. 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 Okay, that's really interesting. So, I know you mentioned like you swapped from palm to claw. Was this how recent was this? Like,
It's been a long time at this point. I went from palm to fingertip first. I was just like
that's
trying shit out
crazy, but
because
okay.
yeah, because I originally like what's it called? When I like for I was a console gamer for like most of my childhood, so
Mm,
when I like first picked up keyboard and mouse, like for like a shooter, it was like CS back in high school, something like that.
right.
Maybe like 4 or 5 years ago now. And then for like the first 2, 3 years, I just always palmed my mouse because I didn't think there was an like if you don't like play like shooter games, you don't really give a shit about like your mouse grip other than however you just first naturally placed your hand on the mouse.
Mm,
And so for me, that was just palm grip, especially since I normally just had larger mice.
mm.
So I palmed originally, but then I was like, when I first like started getting more serious about like CS and stuff, people were like, "Oh, fingertip grip is like cool." So I like messed around with that for like a year, and then after that, I switched to like claw. It was about the time I got into aim training. So
Okay.
like, yeah.
So, how do you feel about all that now?
In terms of,
In terms of like, how much do you think about it in your game?
um,
On like
I
a
don't
day-to-day
like
basis, like how often are you thinking about your mouse grip and things like this?
in game very rarely. In aim trainer, I experiment with it.
Okay.
Obviously, just seeing like, okay, in this type of scenario, I like holding my mouse like this. In this type of scenario, I like holding like not like drastically changing my grip, right?
Yeah.
But like, for example, I'll be more relaxed with the claw when I'm
Mm,
what's it called? When I'm control tracking, when I need to flick fast during like static or dynamic with leading shots, then I'll, tend to have a more like aggressive claw, but like less tension in other parts of the arm. So it's just like stuff like that during aim training I give a shit about. But
okay.
like when I get in a game, I just like
No, I like that.
if that in deathmatch I train with it with some of the principles in mind, but then like in comp I just let like, you know,
Yeah, you
whatever I
have to let it
practice
go.
I hopefully have in place because I have other shit to think about rather than just
Yeah.
moving my mouse in comp. So
Yeah, good. It sounds like you have a good amount of like self-awareness, if that makes sense. Um, a lot of these kind of things people won't actually generally think about. Um, and especially in when it comes to like aim training and things like this, people don't tend to um, maybe a little bit too mindful of it in some cases. It sounds like you have that kind of under control, maybe. Um, One thing that I'll send you the notes that I have written. In the session, we'll talk about these notes, obviously, and I have some like examples of what I'm going to be talking about with you. Of course, at any point, these can change. The notes can change. So during the session, if you feel like this is completely wrong and you want to go in a completely different direction with it, that's totally fine. But these are what I've kind of got for you for right now. So, do you kind of want to just get into it, or do you want to yap a bit more about like aim trainers? Because I'm happy to yap more about aim trainers if you want before we start.
Uh, I mean, we can approach this however, to be honest. Like in terms of, I think for me, it's just like I've always had this mindset kind of that like I need to improve everything all at once. And normally
Right.
with like, especially stuff like aim training and like in-game stuff, you can't do that. I don't
Mm,
think anyone can. And normally I think that's, to be honest, why I'm kind of hard stuck where I am right now. Like
right.
yes, I can say this right now, but like in game, I always like, oh, why did I do this? Why did I do this? Like, if you like break it down, if I go back and break it down after, I can point out like all these mistakes. But then I can't
Mm,
like another thing is like I can't point out the one root cause that causes, like a lot of stuff to go
right.
wrong, if that makes sense. Because like I for me, I think the best way, because you were talking about earlier, like how I wanted to kind of approach these sessions, what I kind of wanted to do is so have like one main focus or takeaway, or not, maybe not even one, but like a small couple takeaways, right? Rather than trying to fix everything. Because if you try to fix everything at once, nothing's gonna be fixed. Because
Yeah.
you're gonna like marginally improve at all the stuff that you're talking about, but then some other stuff that I no longer like am focusing on get worse, and then all of a sudden I'm like the same, like a slightly different player, but like still not
Yeah. You're
improving,
not
right? Like, yeah,
you're not building the routines that you need. So
yeah.
I'll just talk about how I approach coaching and these sessions because I've obviously done these sessions before. I've done like years worth of coaching for other people for different things. Mechanical coaching is just something that I am starting to like lean into a bit more. So these sessions are more structured and more fresh for me currently, but in I have experience with coaching and things like this. So how I typically approach coaching and teaching people and like trying to and not even necessarily teaching people because a lot of this stuff is stuff that everyone kind of knows, but it's more about approaching your weaknesses as a player and then obviously then refining them like we kind of mentioned. So in the past I've looked at maybe roughly if I was looking at a ranked VOD for example, which I no longer do right now. In the future I might get back into it, but I'd need to like again develop that skill. So in the past, if I was looking at a ranked VOD, I'd give you maybe one or two general notes, and then I'll give like one or two round specific notes. So let's say if a player is struggling to play off of their teammates in both halves, I will say as a general note, well, this is something that you struggle to do in general. Make sure that you are looking at the minimap, blah blah blah. Like make sure you're uncomfortably close to your teammate to trade them, and then maybe like they have a let's say they're a smokes player, like a controller player, whatever, and they're struggling with their smokes on defense. I'll give them a defense sided note of like how okay this is how you should be using your smokes, blah blah blah. So how I approach mechanical coaching is kind of similar. I've broken down the fundamental like points of Valorant as much as humanly possible to make it kind of easy to understand for people who just yeah like to just to make it easy to understand, right? And then make it easy to improve on and find like what you're weakest in. Um, and I've broken this down into something called non-negotiable factors of aim mechanics and then negotiable factors of aim mechanics. We'll get into that in a bit. But if we look at your notes, I've gone over your first DM VOD that you sent to me. I went over a tiny bit of the second one. It's kind of just to like get another feel for something because as soon as I started watching your VOD, and it's something I actually really wanted to discuss with you, was how do you feel about your ranked games? Do you ever struggle with like anxiety, like feeling like you're not playing as well in some of your games? Is there something that you come across as like a problem for you?
I would say, in sorry, in general, yes. Because so for me, it's like when you kind of spend, a lot of time, because like I think Valorant's almost 3,000 ish hours at this
Mm,
point, something like that, maybe even more. I mean, it's something that I feel like I've approached with, intention, maybe not always, perfect intentions, not the best, like what's it called? Discipline and whatnot in terms of
Mm.
improving. But I have definitely like spent a lot of time, in and out of the server, just like, okay, what can I improve at? All these things. And at first, when I was doing my initial climb, because to be honest, I peaked like before Ascendant existed, I was like Diamond, almost Immortal, like consistently. And then after Ascendant existed, I was always like Ascendant 3 and then on the cusp of Immortal. Like, but never, I sometimes had consistent Immortal acts, but it's whatever at that point. But also, it's just like, I've never actually broken through to like MO3 or even like approaching Radiant, that kind of area. And it's
Mm.
just like, I've spent a lot of time and other stuff, like aim training as well, was mainly for Valorant. I started playing more other games now as well, but the main intention was to always, improve at Valorant or CS. And I guess that comes from, I started playing CS first. And like CS is the game I enjoy more, but my friends play Valorant more. So it's just, I'll play Valorant more. But at the same time, both are similar enough games in terms of what need to do with your mouse and
Yeah.
movement and general understanding of the game. So it's like improving at one will make you better at the other. Maybe not like instantly, but like when I go back to CS, it's not like I haven't gotten better at that game as well. But
Yeah.
part of the problem is like, okay, I've spent this much time and like I'm hovering around the same plateau. And for me, it's kind of like the same in aim training, where the first few, I'd say, weeks were really, really fun. Obviously, because basically every time you sat down for a session, you were pushing scores, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Um, but as soon as I hit the first plateau, it was just like really difficult mentally to get through that, if that makes sense. And so, and it has nothing to do with I can't like accept not seeing progress, but it gets harder the more and more like I play games like Valorant or CS, and I'm
Yeah.
like noticing very minimal improvement, if any at all. Like, or at least if I am improving, it's only at the same rate that everyone else is. There's none of that explosive like improvement, especially since like 3 acts ago now or something, I had an act where right after aim training and all that like started kicking off, like I had an act where like it was unshakable. Even if I started games off poorly, it'd be fine. Like I could start a game like 2-10 and end the game like 30-15, something like that. But there was like an unshakable resolve that act, like no matter how bad I was doing. But like
How
with
much of that?
acts more,
Sorry. How much of that do you feel like was mental?
um, I think I feel not a small amount of it, but also like I don't know what like okay. I can obviously also say like okay, like I switched I I played more hybrid roles that like act where I played like Senti and Duelist rather than just mainly focusing Duelist. But I don't think that's it. Honestly, mechanically, I think I was just, in a better spot at that point. And I don't know why, because it's not like I've stopped caring about my mechanics and whatnot. Like I haven't like so something I think, especially since unfortunately like my computer fucking crashed or like exploded twice since then. I don't have VODs from that period anymore.
Mm.
Normally I keep VODs for backtracking just to look to see if there's anything wonky, but I don't think I've noticed anything like severely different about the way I played. So I'm inclined to say a lot of it is mental, but maybe I'm still missing a part of whatever I was doing that act that inherently changed something. But I will say it's a lot harder for me, especially recently. Just like if I get off to a bad start, it's a lot harder to recover. Like I'll still have rounds, but almost always for me these days, it's like if I have like a good round, I can build off that. But if I just spend the entire game with like just 1K, 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 like on and off, like sometimes I'll just like die for 5 rounds in a row. It's really hard for me to like get back into flow state.
Mm.
So that's part of it, but I would say part of it's just been like, okay, struggling at a plateau for so long is just like something isn't right, right? And then so it like gets into my own. I get into my own head like I should be better than this.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I was looking for.
yeah.
So that kind of thought was actually something that I noticed in your VOD, and it was something that I really wanted to speak to you about before we made like even more sessions, because we could speak 3 sessions on simply mental health and like staying calm and all of this stuff. We could genuinely spend 3 sessions on just of this, and then you might not even like, and it's still difficult. You'd still have to work on it. Um, so I want to make it deadly clear to you now that it is affecting your progress right now. Um, and we will work on it together. Um, I actually have a thread. I was just writing a thread about this actually, to post on Twitter, um, about mental health in Valorant and how people handle both like tilt, bad days. This feeling of like plateauing is very very common when you're like struggling, and you'll end up having more bad days because you'll think about the game in a way that just isn't beneficial for Valorant. Um, in a really difficult to like hear sense, Valorant doesn't care about your feelings, um, and it's just kind of something that you have to accept. You will have these games where you'll have horrible teammates, where you have bad utility, where the timings will just feel off, and the way that the best players in the world deal with these days is that, well, hopefully they step back from how they're feeling and look at it everything very objectively. And what the best players in the world will do is that they'll have these bad days, or they'll have these times where they're plateauing, or they have these days where they don't feel like they can improve, and they are like thinking super anxiously, or they're stressed in real life, or any of these kind of things, like they haven't eaten properly. There's tons of different things that will affect your performance. But what the best players in the world will do is probably different to, you know, basically anyone else. And there's literally like they have psychological coaches on their teams for this kind of reason. So these people, these like coaches on teams will literally specialize on how do you keep the mentality, how do you keep the intention and feeling positive, and like trying to stay consistent as much as humanly possible. And there's a whole like work flow out like on that alone, and like that's crazy to me personally, because the coaches on the like the let's talk about the main coaches. The main coaches are in there for everything, right? They're in there for full
Hmm.
VOD reviews, they're in there for analyzing, they're in there for blah 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 blah, blah, like thousands of different things, right? And then you just have one coach specifically for like psychological well-being, because it is a massive 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 part of performance in games. um and it comes from like physical well-being to mental well-being to just like general everyday stress, and how do you deal with that, and like how do you deal with your bad days, how do you deal with your good days, how do you think about the game that will build consistency and be like positive for you in that way. So one thing that I noticed when I was looking at your VOD, and that I noticed that you might be an anxious player just because of the way that you were like playing. And when I get back into the VOD, because I haven't seen it in a minute, I need to remind myself of exactly what I saw, but I'll talk to you through why I felt like you were thinking what you just kind of mentioned to me, right? You mentioned that you were plateauing, you're worried about that, you've been at this rank for this amount of time, and that you should be better than everyone else, but you're kind of not feeling that. And you've mentioned that when you were peaking, when you were aim training, when you were feeling the most confident, you were dominating. And it is 100% mental, almost. It's almost 100% mental. It's like you are doing all of these things, you're doing everything, and the difference between you when you're peaking, when you were aim training and you were just getting these kills, you were just doing it, you were just playing the game and you trusted yourself. Versus maybe today where you're worried. You're worried about your plateauing. You're worried about how many hours you have in the game. You're worried about this. You're worried about that. You're worried about on what do I want to like improve on? What is actually like setting me back? You're worried about what did I do in the past that made me look so good, and all of these different things which are negatively impacting your gameplay and negatively impacting what you should be looking to do to improve. When in the past, when you were peaking, and you may relate when you go back, is that you just hopped on the aim trainers for the day because they were making you feel good because you were getting lots of improvement. You went onto Valorant. You didn't really think much. Maybe you did a warm up to make yourself feel even better, and you didn't think about ranked. You queued into ranked. You didn't care about the game as much because you trust yourself, and that is like the key part is trusting yourself. You trust yourself to get kills no matter what, and that's like basically the only difference. And we have to try to redefine our thoughts into something more positive so that we can grow again and get past that plateau and think about our rank more logically, because right now we're kind of letting our emotions get ahead of us just a little bit too much. Which, again, let me remind you, it's totally okay. It's totally normal. And you're fine to be feeling this way, and it's fine to plateau. Okay? So, let's get into stuff, shall we? I'm going to share my screen. I want you to tell me if you can hear it and stuff like that. I should already on Valorant. I was just playing today, so that's good. So, how do I want to do this? I'm just gonna go through your notes as usual. When I don't know what to do, I just go through your notes and then we can work it out. So, I've sent you your notes already. I've sent you your first DM VOD, your second DM VOD, and your tracker, and session 1 of 3. This is tension and intention. It's gonna be like the cute little title that I made for us. So, let's talk about some good things that you're doing so far. In general, I feel like you have a very good understanding of your non-negotiable factors of aim mechanics. I feel like you have a good control of yourself when you take fights. You understand, I feel like you understand what's going on, for the most part, and which is really, really good. And you understand the factors that go into each fight. It is now just about kind of building consistency, which is really difficult, don't get me wrong, but that's what I'm kind of here for. Right? So a couple of things I noticed was like in moments in the first VOD where you went to like spray transfer. This is really advanced kind of like tech. You may not think that as much, but it's actually really, really good. And there are moments where you should be spray transferring, and that is something that you should be doing more. And I really like you to do this, and I want you to keep this up as much as possible, and in brackets, when it is acceptable to do so, which is really, really important, and we're going to get onto that.
Yeah.
Another note is that you are panicked. Whenever you are panicked, you naturally resort to spraying sometimes, which can lead to inconsistent fights. Something we want to take away as much as humanly possible, to not do that. A lot of our sessions are going to be about keeping control and making sure that we have intention through every single bullet that we shoot, basically. And I wanted to go over the fact that you might be an anxious player. It's something that we've now had a conversation over, and how do you feel about what I've just said?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, honestly. If you map some timelines to like exactly where I've been in life, during, periods of struggle, periods of good times. So the last, like, I guess it'd be 3 acts at this point, were the second semester of college for my junior year, in which I was taking, what's it called? Operating systems for comp sci. If you're not familiar, it's like one of the hardest classes in the CS major at any college. And to be honest, it's the worst grade I've ever gotten in a class. And so I'm not like totally shocked that, my mindset's not been perfect.
Was that recently?
Yeah, so that was over like the last two, maybe three acts of Valorant. So I'm not like shocked at all
Mm.
by that understanding. Yeah, I'm you know it's over now, but I'm comfortable saying it was by far the worst grade I've had in the program.
Mm.
And yeah, there are definitely moments of stress. There are definitely times I had a short fuse, shorter on temper than I normally would be.
Mm.
I'm not perfect on keeping my temper, but it was definitely worse over the last few months. I was just agitated about a lot of stuff that normally wouldn't, like I can, be not happy with it, but I almost never would, be as angry as I have been recently in terms of
Mm.
just little things, right? But it's just, yeah, I think cumulative stress in real life, not improving in game, all these things added together, yeah, I definitely can agree that there's some semblance of performance anxiety. On the notes of like panic spraying, uh, I definitely don't disagree either. Uh, I don't know if I said them in the game specifically, but like a lot of the time I'll just like yell at Yui when it happens. But it's just like, yeah, if I'm caught off guard by a fight, I naturally tend towards crouch spraying. It's a bad habit. It really is.
Yeah, that's probably one of the
There's a,
first things we're gonna break.
yeah,
Um,
there was a time that it wasn't, but yeah,
when
it's definitely.
when it
um,
is a time that it is obviously like when it's a time that it's intentional, it's always obvious. When I watch someone, it is 100% obvious whether an action is intentional or unintentional, and most of the times it is completely unintentional. And those are the moments that I want to like mention. And so I, generally speaking, I actually saw this level of performance anxiety in your warm up, actually, because in your warm up you are mechanically really really strong, and then as soon as the game started, all of the kind of bad habits came out, which is when I asked you, hey, can I have a second VOD or a third deathmatch VOD? Because I really wanted to see the difference between how you acted when you felt no pressure, so the game hasn't started yet, the score doesn't matter, versus you have pressure, the score matters, and the game has started. Does that kind of make sense?
you mean like the warm up to a death match, or
Yeah,
like death match in general as a warm
yeah.
up?
So the warm up to a deathmatch.
Okay,
Do
I,
you
I
do
can
you
see that.
do you notice that at all? Do you notice that if do you ever feel like, oh, in your warm up you notice like you're just owning them, you're like hitting all your shots, and then you go into the actual deathmatch, it starts, and you feel like you're struggling?
Uh, yeah, that's definitely. Yeah, that's definitely happened before.
Yeah, you're
I think
laughing. Why
one
are you
time,
laughing?
so I think one time in warm up, I dropped like 20 and one or something,
Oh my
and
days.
then I got like 5 kills in the death match or something.
Oh my
So
days.
like, I mean, maybe not five, but like not good. Definitely
Yeah.
not good. Or like, I don't know. It
So
was maybe
you
one of
kind
the
of
death
relate
matches.
to that though still. You definitely
Uh,
would.
yeah, I could see that. I wouldn't say like I notice anything, particularly different, I guess,
Mm.
like in terms of when I'm playing, but like there have definitely been plenty of examples when I like go back through my own VODs. Like in the warm up, I'm like Thanos, and then I like turn into, like Ant-Man
Yeah.
on the way back.
Yeah.
But like yeah, I've definitely noticed it. I didn't, think too bigly about it. Maybe like I guess in my head it's like, oh, people are trying harder in deathmatch, and
Mm.
then I don't notice, I guess, if my own mechanics like fall off slightly. I think they do, but like I've never really thought about it that way. I just thought like, oh, maybe people weren't like absolutely locked in until, like warm-ups or like deathmatch started, I guess.
It's definitely
You
something I noticed. As soon as I watched your VOD, I was like, this person has really, really strong mechanics. They're like very, very smooth. Like when I was watching your micros, very smooth. Crosshead placement was very intentional. Movement was pretty okay. They're like obviously there's a couple of things that I would mention, but like as soon as it got out of the deathmatch, I just felt like vibe change almost. Like um, it just felt you suddenly just felt tense. It looked tense. It looked like you were worried about something almost. Like, I don't know how to explain it really, other than like just from my personal experience of watching people play. The difference between the warm-up quality for your mechanics and your in-game quality for your mechanics felt drastically different. And so that immediately put me on the thought of like, I need to talk to this player about performance anxiety. And I have never talked to someone about performance anxiety before. So talking about it now is really interesting, and hearing your thoughts about it. Again, let me remind you, it's all very natural. It's very, very natural, especially when you're getting to Immortal, things like this, where the people are good. I'm not gonna lie to you, people are good, and especially when you feel like you're plateauing and you're hitting a certain rank that you can't get above, it again, it's very natural, and you just need to remind yourself like to think kind of logically about things. So when you think logically about things, you think, well, firstly, you need to just be real with yourself. I've put in 3,000 hours. I deserve to be where I am at. And that means, for you, maybe that means to look like currently your rank is Ascendant to Immortal, and you just need to kind of accept, I've put in this many hours, I deserve to be here. And that doesn't have to be a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a neutral fact. Another thing is you want to improve, right? You want to go above that. You want to go above and beyond what you can do, or what you currently are doing right now. That is another fact. Not good, not bad, just neutral, just a thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
Then you start setting a goal. Okay, I want to reach Immortal consistently. I want to reach Immortal 2 consistently. I want to reach Immortal 3 consistently. And then you start to build off from that. So how am I going to look, how is that going to look like for me? So for some people that might be looking like 3 or 4 comp games a day. On the off days I might look at VOD reviews and things like this. I might make a playbook for myself, do like lineups guides and things like this, like to help myself like remember what I'm doing. And then you can set a plan on how you will improve and go to that next rank, and then you start tracking it, and that tracking really helps because you can look back at it and you'll have an objective thing to look at when you're feeling emotional, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling like you're having a bad day. You can look back, and just like aim trainers, how they would just give you a new high score, you can look back and you can just think, okay, well, a week ago I wasn't looking at as my minimap anywhere near as much as I do today. And that's really, really helpful just to remind yourself that you are improving. I guarantee if you did look at the VODs you had in the past, maybe a year ago from now, where you felt like you were more in control and things like this, I guarantee you they are not of the same quality as you are today. You are improving slowly. It doesn't matter how like quickly, there will be improvement. You will be more consistent today than you were yesterday, than you were before that, a year ago especially, right? You just kind of need to accept that where you are today is fine, and it is where you belong. And the real mindset to growth is realizing that, and then thinking about what you can do to improve that consistency. So what can you do to improve? Well, you got a coaching session with me and we talk about it. So maybe having like a second like voice to hear would help you grow and things like this. And that is kind of my job. That's my job as a coach, is to tell you where can you improve, what do you want to set your mind to. I can give you structure to improve. So with all the yapping out the way, do you want to look at the VOD?
Yeah, sure. Sorry to take all your time talk.
No. It's totally fine. I set 2 hours before your scrim just to make sure that we have enough time yapping, because I spend a good amount of time on these sessions.
Well, yeah, no, I just want to make sure, because I know some people are pretty like stringent on like, okay, I'm only allotting like this much time or whatnot. So
I have as much time as it takes for you to improve, and for you to feel happy and feel like you're learning something from the session. A lot of my sessions before have been about an hour and 50 minutes. This is not going to be an hour and 50 minutes. This is going to be like 2 hours, probably. And for me, that's totally fine. So if you're fine with that, I'm fine with that. That is just how long the session will take, and that's just okay with me. As long as you're feeling like you're learning something, and you'll come away from the session feeling like, okay, wow, she's actually taught me something really, really cool. Even if it's just like one thing that has been really useful to me, that is worth it. So
I
let's
just
talk
want
about
to
the
make sure
VOD.
I'm not imposing on you. So
I want to make sure I'm not imposing on you. You're the one paying me to do some silly Valorant work. You know what I mean? Like I am grateful for you. But yeah, let's talk about some of these things. So when I do coaching, as I just mentioned, I talk about non-negotiable factors of Valorant mechanics, and I talk about negotiable factors of Valorant mechanics. So what does that mean? That means that your non-negotiable factors of Valorant mechanics are things that you control at all times, and if any of those things are like wrong, they are basically always inefficient. They're always bad. So if, for example, if you're like aiming at the floor, it's bad because you want to be kind of aiming at head height for the most part, right? Or if
Mhm.
you're like, peeking wrong, it's always going to be bad. Um,
Yeah.
these are things that you can control at all times and to make your gunfights look as efficient as possible. Negotiable things are things that are context dependent and things not always in your control, sometimes in your control. So things that are sometimes in your control might look like how you decide to take the fight after it happens. So let's say you maybe like jiggle into a wide swing. It is then the negotiable part of that is why did you make that decision? So why did you jiggle, like get some info and then wide swing, and was that a good decision? Or and then like, can we use utility? Can we layer that? And it kind of just layers, right? So for the most part, we don't talk about negotiables too much, especially if you have non-negotiables that need working on. So let's say, for example, if I realize that you have lazy crosshair placement, or you're not taking intention with your fights, I will talk about that way over something that is negotiable. And that's what we're kind of going to do in session one, especially. We'll refine your non-negotiable factors of Valorant mechanics, really, and really just like deep dive into what you can do to improve the consistency of each fight as much as humanly possible, so that when you get into a fight, you can think about the fight instead of having to think about how you're going to take the fight to start with. You can think about, okay, is this person swinging into me? Are they running? Are they walking? Like, are they doing all of these different things? And you can think about that instead of when you actually are in the fight. When you're in the fight, you'll have a plan. You'll know how to peek. You will know when to wide swing, or like how to wide swing at least. Sorry, you'll know how to wide swing. You will just trust that your crosshair is going to be good at all times. You'll do all of those different things, and then you can only have to worry about like, okay, there's a guy at a location. Let's say you're on a split, there's a guy in heaven. Well, how do you want to take that fight? That's when we'll talk about negotiables. That's when we'll talk about, okay, utility, or how they'll peek into you and things like this. Do you have any questions there?
Uh, no, not really. I mean,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. We're gonna go over some examples of your gameplay. We're gonna go over sorry, sips. We're gonna go over your like aiming technique a little bit, and then we'll go over your self-assessment checklist, and we'll be happy days basically from there. So I need to stop saying so. I did this in my VOD yesterday, and I kept saying so, and it pissed me off.
All
God
good.
damn it. Okay. Sorry. 26. So we could talk about your warm up actually.
Death match.
Can you hear this, by the way?
Yeah.
Cool. This is an example of like lazy crosshair, and it's from. And this is something that I noticed. This is like the start of when I noticed that you play warm up differently to in game. You're not as locked in warm ups, right? At least I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I know. I doubt it.
And that's why I was like, okay, you're way more relaxed here, which is what I kind of noticed. And when I watched through the rest of your VOD. But let's just talk about the actual mechanics. So lazy crosshair, lazy crosshair, and nice adjustment. Right. So just talking about that lazy crosshair with the lazy peek. So when you did peek into them, so your crosshair is like in the floor, and your crosshair is here when you peek. You're super wide. Like, this peek is terrible. It's lazy and unintentional. There are some other moments in the map where you have like this lazy crosshair. So if you look at this intention behind this crosshair here, so we're going to clear. We went to clear this angle without really clearing it. We went to clear this, and we didn't kind of. We're crosshairs all over the place, right? You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you just kind of look a bit lazy crosshair, it's all over the place. So up, down, left, right, and then you finally find a fight, and we'll talk about that fight in a minute, maybe. So there's a little bit of like lazy crosshair, especially intention is something that we'll talk about a little bit more. This is from your second VOD. There's a lot of tension in your gameplay, and it looks like this.
Yeah, that's a lie.
So you see how you like do this jitter. So if you just watch the crosshair, it goes like left, right, and this happens quite often in your gameplay where you have this like lack of stability. So in this VOD, it looks like 108. You see how there's like a shake here?
Yeah.
If I just slow this down a little bit. So when you go into peak, there's like this tight shake around the gecko. That's not very good. Something we want to avoid as much as possible, especially when they're not looking at us. But every single fight here has this kind of tension too. So notice on the neon, there's that flick back. I could probably play it in slow mo, to be honest. So lazy crosshair, tension during the fight. Kind of lazy crosshair placement, tension on the jet going left and right, tension on the gecko, and then we have terrible peekers like holding technique here. So we should just hold this guy. So after we kill this, we should just be holding here for them to peek into us, because otherwise we risk peeking into them as they're peeking into us, and our crosshair placement is wrong, basically. So notice how we went to peek into them, but they peeked into us at the same time, and we had to do this flick. Which leads us to doing, like, having more tension. You heard someone here, and this is the negotiable I was talking about. I think you heard someone here anyway. But the spray control here was good. And this is something I want you to keep in your gameplay. If you feel like at any point, so that fast movement was very good. If you feel like that is something that is good to do in the moment, I want you to continue doing spray control like that. I think it's a good habit. This, however, is not a good habit. Notice the mouse cam, by the way, amazing little factor to add in, and I would have been able to point this out. Notice that when you're holding here, that you don't reset. So you have time to reset here. You have plenty of time to reset, and you should have reset to the center so that you can adjust to this person properly. This doesn't happen again, but I do want you to just to make you very aware that if you have time after a big movement like this to reset and hold this person properly. I don't see many moments where you hold. I don't know how confident you feel when you're holding, and I think that's something we need to change. If I had to guess, I don't think you're very confident holding angles at all.
Oh yeah, it's kind of weird because in CS it wasn't a problem. I would say like I was relatively strong at it, but that was during Go, where Peeker's advantage was less of a thing. And so in this game, I had times where I would especially when I was like first starting, I tried to hold angles. Obviously there's some different movement speed stuff involved, but a lot of the time I would just get like thrown out of the server like instantly. In terms of like
Mm,
getting absolutely destroyed when holding an angle, and it's like I didn't even have time to react. Now I know sometimes that's just I wasn't locked in enough on the angle. Like I'll fall asleep. That's a tendency, and still a bad tendency. Where if I'm looking at for something for too long, I like fall asleep on the angle. But also sometimes it just felt like I just could not react to anything.
mm,
So I have tried putting it back into my game a little more. It's rare, as you say.
very. I
Um,
don't think I ever
but
saw you
yeah,
really hold.
yeah, yeah, it's just definitely something I don't. I try to, I guess, avoid it in the sense because like I am so like used to just getting swung and absolutely eviscerated.
Oh yeah, it's your warm up, thing.
Of course, I shot
So
like Thanos. Of course, it's my warm up.
yeah, fast, snappy. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna coach this person. I think there's some easy stuff to work on, like just intention, I guess. But like if it just keeps up like this, and then I watched the rest, and I was like, oh, movement is good, adjustments are good. This is a bad thing. You should be holding here instead of moving. Because you notice how you're like moving your crosshair at the same time.
Yeah.
So we can get into holding specifically in a minute. When this person is peeking, you can move tiny bits like this, but afterwards you need to just hold your crosshair steady here and aim for where you think he'll peek into you, and just click. So you can't be moving here again. You've already
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
adjusted. You now just have to hold and hope for he peeks.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you end up moving your crosshair at the same time that you're moving, and when you're aim training, I think this is like the best way to put it. When you're aim training, you never do this, right? You're never moving and moving your crosshair at the same time. That causes
Yeah.
instability, and that causes, yeah, that basically just causes instability, where you don't have control of your crosshair, like full control of your crosshair, where you could just be like holding this guy, you could just click him when he comes out, and it just becomes into like a reaction time test, really. So instead of you hitting him in the body here, you would have just shot him in the head. But instead he just shits on you. So as we mentioned before, you're wait, 126, hold 126. Got more holding clips apparently. Oh, this jet. Yeah, this jet was
Yeah.
130. Oh, the 130 was the stage. Okay. So let's talk about movement. Your movement currently feels unintentional with no solid plan. So most fights are just regular kind of AD movement. Not many wide swings or outplays. This is something you'll work on in the future when you start becoming more intentional with your gunfights. Because currently, you can work on this and you should work on this, and just keep it in the back of your mind to start making these kind of outplays where you are maybe jiggling, taking an info fight, and then wide swinging. And with good intention to do that. It's rare that these happen in games, but not rare enough for you to not practice this at all. I think it's really important for you to be working on outplays and thinking about the game a bit more than just commit to the fight AD until someone dies. But in general, your movement seems unintentional right now, to the point where I don't think you can do, like, you should be focusing on that entirely. So let's talk about this gunfight, for example. So, wow, let's talk about this hold. I haven't even looked at this, really. I want to slow this down. It's my own. So when you peeked into this person to start with, you notice how you're moving again? This is horrible, horrible technique. When you peek into an angle, you want to be committing to that gunfight. So when you peeked into this angle, you should just be microing to this guy's head, and you should have already killed him here. But instead, you weren't ready for the gunfight, and you kind of like did this tiny jiggle, and it led to him hiding. And then you do this jiggle again, slight like it just making yourself slightly less stable in gunfights, when you should have won this fight a couple seconds ago. So you should have won it there, but now you have to just hold. And the hold was good, where you held your crosshair. It was stable. Wait for him to peek into you, and you got the kill. And we could talk for days about this fight. So you peek, you're W king, which is okay if you don't feel like you're expecting this person to be here. That's fine. As soon as you realize that they are on your screen, these taps are okay, but I want you to be more intentional with this gunfight even further. So I don't feel like you've thought too much about distances and how you want to take your gunfights. I feel like here is just, I am trying to shoot this person with 2 bullet taps because I know that's the right thing to do. I don't feel like you've ever really thought about distances as like, oh, okay, at 50 meters I want to tap, but at this range I want to do these 2 bullet bursts, at this range I want to do blah blah blah. And it leads you to making these... The adjustments are like fine, like some days you'll just miss, that's fine, right? But it does end up leading you to not really having a plan, not really knowing what to do in these gunfights, and you end up crouch spraying.
Okay, so this one I can actually explain. This is a bad habit, I know. So don't take this as any kind of excuse here. Basically at ranges like this is, I think, quite literally one of the longest angles in the game. But in distances like this or fights like this, if I whiff like the first 4 80-80 strafes, I don't think that's the exact number, but if I miss enough 80-80 strafes and like I can't hit a bullet, I just tend to just like, okay, I just crouch commit. Like it's a terrible habit, but I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna pick one time where I think he's gonna line up, and I'm just gonna like commit to a spray. It's a horrible habit, but it's just like, okay, I like give up on 80-80 strafing.
Okay, in which case we can develop your plans even better. So in order to fix something like this, you develop a plan for your distance. When you are at this distance, practice what is most comfortable for you. So for me, when I was practicing something like this, I decided I just put it down. I am going to one tap these people at this distance. When I'm at this distance, I am going to tap, and I'm not going to do anything else. And I'm just going to do these ADs, and I'm just going to tap. And what that does is, in your mind, that lets you, that gives you freedom to think about just your aim and just making the micro corrections, because you already know what you're going to do. And now you can think about your movement. And so because I've made this plan in my head, I'm going to win this fight 60-40 versus this person if I have good aim. Just because I've thought about how I'm going to take the fight before it even happens. So a lot of the fights that I take are won before I've even started. And that's kind of how you really need to be thinking about these fights. You can't be getting lazy and thinking like, oh, if I whiff a bunch, then I'm just gonna commit to a crouch spray, because it is lazy. It's a bad habit, and
it's 100% not.
You need to ask yourself, why are you making these decisions? Because at the end of the day, that is a decision you're making with your improvement. You need to be asking yourself, why do I feel like it's acceptable to lean into that bad habit? Why do I feel like it's okay for me to just accept that I'm just going to die at this distance instead of figuring that out? So why do you feel like it's okay that you're just gonna die here? Like, you're gonna see this fight so many times, hundreds if not maybe even thousands of times, depending how much you play, right? You're gonna see this fight a lot, so you have to take it seriously. You have to take every single moment like this seriously, so you can make it efficient as possible. Because otherwise, you're just gonna keep dying in this distance, and you're never gonna really realize why. And then you're gonna plateau, and it's gonna be a sad, and then you're gonna be super inconsistent, and then it spirals, right? So help yourself by developing a plan for every situation that you can be in. And we can develop that together. So let's talk about your intention firstly. All of these things can be fixed, like honestly pretty simply, but it just needs a tiny bit of work to like kind of get into it, and kind of just like accept that right now we are doing these bad habits. The bad habits can change, and it's just about, you know, that discipline of breaking the bad habit, and really just thinking about why do you do these kind of things. So let's talk about some negotiables. I think generally speaking, this is like intentional gunfight hygiene, which is kind of non-negotiable, but I just kind of fit it in here anyway. So your intention of your gunfight hygiene needs refining. This is one of them. This is the intention of your gunfight hygiene. So at what distance are you going to do a tap, or at what distance are you going to do blah blah blah. 105, and it's a negotiable because of the situation that you put yourself in. So on your screen you see two people, 1, 2. What do you think you should do in this situation?
I mean, if I'm, you know, able to freeze frame here, it's strafe left, like to unexpose Gecko, so I get a 1v1 against top mid, because there's no like swing right now that puts me far enough out of the angle of top that I can just fight Gecko. Plus I'm already crosshair closer, so it's an easier movement to deal with. So it's almost always strafe left towards doors here.
Yep. What do you never want to do in this situation?
Hit the crouch key, spray transfer between the two, because I think
Yeah, hit the crouch key is the answer. And it's just that crouch key. We cannot be taking this fight with this panicked mindset that you end up crouching, right?
Mhm.
This has to be in your mind, and I'll show you a clip that basically perfectly resembles what we're about to talk about and this exact mindset. Do you know Primi?
Yep.
Primi has like one of the most perfect examples of this in context. Where is it at? This one is really, really good. So just watch how Primi deals with this situation. I'll play it in full motion for now. How do you think he dealt with this situation in his head?
As long as he's just giving himself as much time as possible to have fights. And he's a moving target, so it's harder for them to hit.
Yeah, so Primi is insanely good at this. He has some of the best, most refined mechanics in the game right now, and it's for good measure. So let me show you. When he goes to peek, he will peek with full intent to kill. You're going to notice that when I play this in slow motion, when he peeks this raise, he doesn't know the raise is here, by the way. There's been no util information, nothing like that. He is peeking to clear this like first angle. Notice that when he does peek into him, he is fully ready to stop, aim, and shoot. Okay, so now he's taken his first fight. His mind is immediately like, okay, I can be traded. How do I want to put someone off guard in this situation? One reason why you wide swing here is when you wide swing, this male angle becomes like, it becomes way harder to shoot Primi because you're running across this, and there's just like some angle advantage here. So this is one good reason why Primi would wide swing in this situation to fight the Vents player. So notice how as soon as he wide swings, his crosshair adjusts to the sky. Okay? Then it adjusts to the clove. So he's just thought to himself while he's fully swinging, so he's doing this while swinging and under pressure, he understands that if he crouches, he is dead for the most part. If he commits to one of these fights, he is dead. But his mind is simply thinking, in this situation, okay, what can I do to give myself the best chance possible to deal with these two players? And that's literally all it is. So he's just assessed, okay, Sky is here, Clove is here. He's put his crosshair even on Sky, and then we'll do it on Clove. He took a first shot at Clove, and he does this like tiny non-committal crouch peeks, which is what he's kind of like really good for.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of shoots them. But in his mind, it's never like, oh, I've lost this gunfight. It's, how do I win this gunfight? And it's just that tiny adjustment that like makes this different, right? The difference between panicking, crouching, and spraying the Sky, maybe killing the Sky, but getting traded, versus killing two here, is just that, how do I win this gunfight? That calm kind of notion that Primi has, that is a really, really strong example, really, really cool example. That if we put into this gameplay here, where you see two people, you don't crouch and you just keep going left. You kill the jet, you go left, and you hope that the gecko misses a shot. And like, it is a hope, and it's like something that, you know, it doesn't really matter that much in the long run, like this specific gunfight, but it's that mentality behind it that I'd like to just point out and let you notice that this crouching habit is more than what you think it is.
Yeah, I think for this one especially, I think for me, at least I think I've always noticed that I try consistently to win, I guess, like, and this is something I've noticed, I don't quite know how to fix it. It's the same problem I actually have in aim training, but like if I have a target acquired like with my eyes basically, it's very rare for me to like, especially in Valorant situations, for me to like see, okay, like I did see the second target in this situation. I do remember this clip, but like for me it's like, okay, my eyes were on Jet first, so I'm like finish the Jet kill. Like in the Primi like example where he like switches between the two consistently. I guess that's just not in my head. It's the same in like static where it's very common for me to like go back to the same dot. It's a bad habit and I'm trying to like be more intentional about.
What do you mean go back to the
I
same
think,
dot?
yeah, I like always, so like in static, let's say I'm in one wall 5, right? I correct to one dot, and then if I miss that dot, I almost like always like double take back to it.
Oh,
But I've also noticed that like if you see in like high level static VODs, they'll just go to the next dot because they're 100% confident that they'll hit.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you
and
need to change that even if you're missing today. This will
yeah,
massively improve all of your scores across basically everything. That's like one of the biggest things that if I'm ever coaching someone for aim training specifically, it's one of the biggest things that will bring someone, even someone from the same accuracy to the same accuracy. The difference between someone clicking and then swapping away from the target really quickly versus just clicking and then like going back to the target, it's a massive difference, because you have to react like think about it in this way. You have a 200 millisecond ish reaction time, right?
mm-hmm.
So you go to flick to the target to start with. That is, so let's say you have two little dots, right? And you've just clicked this one. You have a 200 millisecond reaction time to go to this dot, right? So let's say you click here and you've already acquired this one. Yeah. So you've got the 200 millisecond here, but then you realize that you've missed. So it is another 200 seconds here, yeah. And then it is another 200 seconds to readjust almost.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you have to like think about this. So this is like plus 400 milliseconds that you're wasting trying to correct to this dot again, when you could just be missing and moving on to this one. So even if you had like, let's say 85% accuracy and you were flicking to this dot, just because you're simply 200 milliseconds faster, you're getting an extra, like, let's say 15 dots almost. So because when you miss I don't know, I'm making up numbers here, but when you miss, you get the extra dot because you've added the extra the extra 200 from the reaction time, right? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely know it's a problem, and I've been working on it. It's just like, um, I guess like it's a habit because especially since I spent so much time on Counter-Strike as my foray in, it's like, okay, if I'm taking a fight on someone, I'm not just gonna like instantly flick to Narnia like off my next peak, if that makes sense. So it's
Mm,
just a habit that I've been trying to like get away from. Because I've talked to Viscos extensively, like about it. Like, okay, I need to like stop doing this because yes, I know it's a bad habit and I'm like working at getting rid of it, but it's like it's a process and I'm still in the process of it, especially because I spent a lot of time like on tracking and stuff like that recently, just because um I mean that's the like main weakness that I had to fix in aim training. Obviously, I'm not perfect in other parts, right? But like when I'm like masters at switching and like
mm,
and then like my worst was like I was like some tracking scenarios not even plat, so I like did that for a while and I
right.
like improved at that. Um, so it's taken a bit of a back burner, but I know it's a problem, and every time I go back to static, I like work towards fixing it. It's just in
I
progress, not done yet.
how do you go about dealing with situations when you need to break a bad habit?
Like if it's a bad habit, I just consciously think about it and just start, like practicing with that intention. So like for example, the first time I got rid of my like couch committing slash spraying habit, I just took fights like completely like not allowing myself to couch basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like too far the other way because sometimes it is good to couch. But like I would force myself basically to go so bad that it goes the other way, and then like once I can force myself to do that, I like start working back towards the middle. Because like
I want
if
you
I
to
start working,
sorry,
okay,
I want you to try and reframe it in your head a little bit more. Um, Instead of I am not allowed to crouch at all, I want you after each gunfight to think about the gunfight that you've just taken and think to yourself, was that crouch intentional?
yeah,
That is the question that I want you to be asking yourself.
hmm
And for things that are just objectively wrong, so you know in static that is objectively wrong to um not to flick to flick away when you to sorry to flick back when you've missed. You know
hmm
it's objectively wrong to do that. It becomes really easy to break that bad habit because you go, why did I do that? And I you say that I did that because I made a mistake. That is not something I should do, and I know I shouldn't do it, and I need to slow down to break that bad habit, right? But in your games, when it comes to negotiable stuff, so things that are like, sometimes it is actually good to crouch peek. You don't want to be restricting yourself because that's not learning. When you
hmm
when you unbind your crouch key, for example, you're not learning. When you put that crouch key back on, you're gonna start crouching again because you didn't break the bad habit. You just slowed down your learning because you just tried to teach yourself that it's a bad thing to do when actually it is a good thing to do sometimes. And so you need to just accept intentionality when you are learning. You need to
hmm
ask yourself, when you crouched, did I do that on purpose? And then
hmm
when you didn't do that on purpose, you need to go, okay, why did I not do that on purpose? And you need to sit a little bit deeper in your thoughts when it comes to improving and breaking bad habits, because habits are a fucking bitch to break. They're also a bitch to create. Um, and
hmm
so you really need to think about why did I do that? Why do I think about my gunfights at long in this certain way? Why do I think about my like bad habits as something that is just something that I do, right? Why is it something that I just accept that I do that is fine for me?
hmm
Right? Because right now I feel like you're doing that. I feel like you're just accepting that you flick back to targets. I feel like you're just accepting the long fights that are bad for you. I feel like you're just kind of like accepting that you are um, doing these things, and like that's fine to some extent. But I'm not sure if there's much more thought above that. And maybe that's me being like mean. Maybe I'm a bit mean for saying that. But like that's kind of how I feel when you're talking about it. That's the kind of the vibe that I get when you're just like expressing the bad habits that you do have. It's like, oh, I just do this, and it's like I'm working on it, but it's like it's just something I do. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, it's not just something you do. Why do you do it? So why do you take these fights in this way? Why is it something that you feel like is something that you do to start with? Like, and I don't know if you have an answer for that.
There is an answer, but also it's just like something I'd rather not get into because it's a touchy topic. But
Okay.
um, yeah, I mean, broken record, but yeah, definitely something I'm coming to grips with. So it's like harder to deal with for me
Mm.
more than most. But I would say it has very little to do with the gaming aspect of it and has a lot more to do with like personal stuff in terms of like upbringing and whatnot,
Mm.
in terms of how habits come to be, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So a lot of it comes down to more, you know, things that happened while I was growing up that I wasn't, that I feel like I didn't do that much wrong, but like I got punished as such, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And so some of it just comes down to that. And so like in some sense, it also comes up with like certain times of criticism. Like I'm generally fine with it, especially if like someone mentions like okay, you do this good, but then like this is bad.
Mm.
Like that I can fix. But if someone just like inherently comes to me and tells me like, "Oh, you're like only doing or like basically everything you do is wrong" or something like that,
Yeah, it's not.
then
That's
it
not
comes to
criticism, really.
then at that point like it comes to a struggle and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like
Mm.
yeah, I can fix stuff if you bring certain things to my attention, but if you just like say, "Oh, yeah, everything you do is wrong," and especially in my head, like in let's go back to gaming here. Especially like okay, I've hit MO2, I've gotten almost to MO3. I can't be like everything is wrong, especially when people like
Mm.
tell me that kind of stuff. It's just like there's not any chance that that can ever be true, right?
Yep.
Like I get a little more offended at that kind of like comment, and then
Mm.
so it like becomes harder to break certain habits, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I would say it's something that's more deeply ingrained, and it's something I definitely like at the root. That's a problem.
Mm.
I don't disagree. But yeah, it's kind of why you say like, oh, like it kind of sounds defeatist, but there is some truth in that. It's just like,
So I'm gonna cut you off here because I don't want
yeah,
you to get too personal if that's not like something you're comfortable with. Obviously, if you want to talk to me about that, that's totally okay. I want to remind you that this mindset is fine. This mindset is something that I just want to make you aware of it. If you weren't
mhm,
already aware of this, it comes across in the way that you speak, it comes across in your tone, and I'm only pointing this out because I want to see you grow. And that is important to me as like a coach, right? I would like to point that out.
mhm.
Obviously, if that is ingrained in something better, or sorry, not better, but like something else, something different in your personal life, and you don't want to share that with me, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. And we can move on. However, it is something that I did want to point out because having a growth mindset is very important for everyday life. And
Yeah,
you need to be kind to yourself when you are taking criticism from yourself and from other people. So when someone comes to you with this negative criticism, you need to do your best to assess whether that opinion is right for you. For some people, that opinion might be great, but for others, that might not be so good. So when someone comes to you with this negative criticism and you feel offended, firstly, you need to ask yourself, well, why do I feel offended? And secondly, you need to ask yourself, is that still valid opinion? And if you come to the conclusion that it's not valid and you are just offended, then that person is just an asshole. But the way that you react to that is really important. If someone just gives you unfair criticism about something that you've done, and you come to the conclusion that their opinion is actually maybe right, then you can start to think about how do you want to deal with that. But having a lot of thought about into, like, just have that insight of different opinions and how they affect you, and your own opinions and how they affect you, and thinking about kind of like just like diving a little bit deeper into why you do things. So it's nothing to do with being defeatist, really. It's just about being curious about yourself, curious about the things around you, curious about why you do certain actions, curious about, on my bad days, why do I suffer so much? Why do I feel like I am struggling so much? Why do I feel like I have worse aim? Why do I feel like I get more tense or I get angry? Why do I feel so upset on my worst days? And you can start building this knowledge of yourself that is way deeper than you might expect, right? And you can start taking care of that a bit more, and you become more consistent on the bad days. And that, for Valorant, might look like, when you're feeling tired, you just don't play. You go do VOD reviews or something, right? You go do anything else that isn't Valorant just for like a day, and you come back and then you're feeling good that day, well, you go play ranked, right? But on the days that if you notice that you're feeling stressed, you're feeling angry, that's fine. Firstly, you have to validate your feelings, because they are right. They are still your feelings. But your thoughts should be curious. You should be thinking, okay, why do I feel angry? Why do I feel frustrated with myself? Why do I say these things to myself? So why do I say that, like, my bad habits are like, I can't change my bad habits or anything like this? If you feel like you're defeated, or why do I do this? It's all about basically why. It's just like, when you break things down, can you, and then you can start changing them, right? So once you notice that you're having these bad habits, then you can start changing them. So if you feel like you're starting to accept having bad habits, for example, I'm not saying that you do, but if you feel like you did at any point, you're just like, okay, well, I just do this thing. You need to then just break that down. Okay, why do I feel like this? I do this thing. Why is this okay for me? Why is this something I'm okay with when it is something that I want to change? And then you can break that thought down even further, right? And that is how you develop this knowledge about yourself that you will find in everyday life is really, really useful, as well as just in games. But again, I just want to kind of share that information with you, as I feel like it might be important to this. As someone who experiences lots of anxiety and emotions and things like this, I think getting to the bottom of them is not always possible, but taking care of your health and your mental health in particular is vital at all points, and you should always be taking care of yourself. And if you feel like you are ever treating yourself badly, or especially other people, like you feel frustrated on these days, you need to ask yourself why, and feel like, and kind of like assess that a bit more. But again, it comes to kind of everything. So, I've said so again. Life is stressful, man. Let's talk about your self-assessment checklist, the things that we could do to practice, and to develop some of these skills. If you need like 5 minutes to just process what I've just said, by the way, that's totally fine. Otherwise, do you have any thoughts, things you want to say, questions?
No, you're good.
Yeah, you happy for me to go onto the checklist?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. let's talk about practice. There's a bunch of different things you could do for practice, right? So we touched on your intentionality of your gunfights. We touched on your movement fundamentals. We've touched on your holding technique. We've touched on the fact that in a lot of fights you look tense, your crosshair control, and this performance anxiety, which is something that you will work on for your whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is okay, right? Is there any parts of this that you feel like you would struggle improving on, or like you don't know exactly what to do straight away?
Mm, I mean, kind of like, cause like crosshair control is something I feel like I've spent a lot of time on. Obviously, I know there are quite a few moments of dead crosshairs. I'm not even gonna contest against that. But like, it's something that I've definitely spent hours and hours like thinking about. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if I'm looking at my mini map, it's gone. Or if I'm,
You don't need to have it then.
thinking about, yeah, if I'm thinking about like something else, it's gone. But like, when I, at least I feel like whenever I expect a fight, and then I feel like my crosshair is generally in the right place. Is it perfect head level? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah.
That can be improved at all times. I don't think anyone always has perfect crosshair placement, and I mean even the best players, I don't think so. Watching some
No.
of them sometimes, but in general, when I feel like I expect a fight, I feel like my crosshair is in the right place. And yeah, that comes back down to intention, but at least that's how I feel. If we want to go back to where I said like my strengths as a player, generally expecting, like in normal situations, I think am pretty good at expecting where the next fight comes from. That comes down to like, okay, like it's why I'll continue the spray into some random angle, or like if I hear a fight coming, I'll like, transition to that fight, like relatively. Like, so these are things like if I expect a fight, yeah, my cross replacement's fine. But at the same time, I know like, or at the same time, it's like when I don't expect a fight, my cross replacement's terrible, and can admit to that. But at the same time, it's like I guess I don't know how to force my brain into thinking it's necessary at that point, because then like at least my crosshair will be at a reasonable place for me to move it if I get into an unexpected fight, right? But I can't personally get that transition, if that makes sense,
Alright.
into my head.
So let's just talk about some fundamentals of Valorant. I'm sure you already know everything, basically. In my server, there is some ideas of like actual fundamentals. So when you want to steady peek, when you want to do all these things, and in customs, I think it's useful to practice stuff like this. Did I just load up Lotus when it's Pearl? Oh well, that's fine. It's just one of those days. It's okay. So you can break down every single deathmatch that you do into just focusing on these as if it was a as if it was aim training. Instead it's just like mechanical fundamental training, right? So how do I mean by that? When you go into a custom, that's really annoying me that I'm on Lotus, by the way, instead of Pearl. But when you go into a custom, for example, I want you to think about the fundamentals of Valorant. I'm sure that you understand that when you are running around, you want to be tracing the angles before you peek into anything. Right, I'm sure that you understand that when you do peek into something, you want to set up correctly for that fight. And so go into a custom and develop each skill. So if you're like walking up to an angle, I want you to be tracing. And then when you're ready to set up, you are like around 2 steps away from the peak, right? Because you want to have the speed to peek into something. You set up and then you peek, and you have this intention to, if someone is here, for example, that you peek and you kill them when you want to do that, right? So when you go to deadly peek someone or to slice the pie, that if someone is there, you're gonna kill them. And then so you do this for a bit in your customs, just kind of get the hand, like the feeling of doing something like this, and then you go into your death matches, and you just do it in every single angle. Bless you. Oh my god. Sorry, in every single angle, you go to peek as if you are intentionally clearing everyone. You're slicing the pie. You want to make sure that you're isolating each angle, and you think about those fundamentals. And you do that in a deathmatch. And you do this until you have it down, you have it solid, right? Or if you feel like you are lacking gunfight hygiene, which I think is something that you need to work on the most, you simply let your body do this part of the aiming. So when you go into these angles, you still want to clear them as best you can, but when you go into a gunfight, I then want you to think about the distances. So for example, when I go into a custom, sometimes I just ping, and when I'm in a deathmatch, for example, I'll just ping like the floor, and I'll go, oh, okay, this is 30 meters. Well, how do I want to take that fight? Well, actually, at 30 meters, I think I want a 2-tap burst, because that's what I found comfortable for me. I found that's very accurate for me. So I don't know what distance this is. Oh, it's 25 meters. Okay, 2-tap burst is still fine for me. How long is this distance? Oh, about 40 meters. I think actually here I might want to spray. I can even crouch spray and crouch and move and things like this. At this distance, what do I want to do? Well, maybe I start tapping because there's heads here, right? But it's still in the range of being totally fine for me to do whatever I kind of want. This is how I start thinking about the game and start developing my skills as a player, and that consistency, those plans, so that when I go into this fight, when I'm about to peek here, I go, okay, well, I've now set up, peek, and I'm doing these 2-tap bursts. Because in my head, I've already gone, when I'm ready to do this fight, when I'm in this fight, when I'm committed to this fight, I'm just going to do 2-tap bursts. And the way that you get comfortable with what fights you want to take is, one, over time in deathmatch, you just decide how you want to take fights. And you can do this very, you can either do this in the range and you literally just set yourself some numbers, which is exactly what I did, which is what I found worked the best for me personally. Or you just do it naturally. You just take the fights and you go, okay, what did I do in this fight? Did it feel comfortable for me or not? Did my gun feel like, did I feel like I was in control of my gun just now? So let's say you're at this long distance over here, for example. Did I feel like I was in control doing 2-tap bursts over here? Right? Did I feel like, so for example, you see these bullets over here? This is exactly why I don't do 2-tap bursts. I've noticed this is something that happens when I'm doing 2-tap bursts at 50 distance, like this distance. So I've decided, instead of taking the fight with 2-tap bursts, I'm going to do that because look at my spray now. I've good control of it. Like, did I feel in control of this? Yes, I did. But when I do these 2-tap bursts, did I feel in control of this? Maybe not always. So you can start thinking of it like that. And the way you do that is in the range. So there's a little bot in the range, and I'll go to it in a minute, that sets the distance. And you kind of just can go to it and you can just check your accuracy and just see what you're comfortable with. And then you run around the map, go pinging, like, oh, what's this, 30 meters? Okay, cool. What's this, 40 meters-ish? And you slowly get an example, like an idea of your head of what fights are what distance. And you kind of just understand, you just kind of know. So maybe like at this distance, I think this is about 20-ish meters. Yeah, 20 meters. And this is just from me. I never pinged this before. I never knew. But this is just me getting an example of, like, I know roughly how long 20 meters is now. And so now I can think about this fight as a 20-meter fight instead of, like, you know, anything else. So if someone is here in this 20-meter fight, I can aim, like, maybe, you know, away from the wall because he might peek me wide. And then I can do these 2-tap bursts, or even maybe 3-tap bursts at this range, right? And that's how I start thinking about my gunfights. And that's how I start thinking about intentionality with the gunfights. And one thing that I always teach to people is that I don't think that there is anything wrong. There's never, like, a wrong answer for this game. That's what makes this game so, like, unique and fun. And FPS games are like that. I don't think there is a set answer for everything. I do think that there is some creative liberty to each gunfight, but also a lot of it is also just like, you know, personal preference, like what makes you confident. That is really like what that is. There's a lot of things that are like answered. So how do you 2-tap burst? How do you move? Some of it is like answered for you, but otherwise it's like, what are you most comfortable with? What are you confident with? So for me, it's these 1-tap bursts at this range. And if I don't 1-tap burst at this range, I immediately go, well, that's a non-negotiable for me. Why did I not 2-tap burst at this range? Why did I not like tap at this range? And it might just be like, I was panicked, right? I feel like I was panicking. So maybe I was taking this fight and maybe I just like did these 2-tap bursts and didn't run away properly. I would then think about this gunfight. I think, okay, why did I do that, right? And it's like, I panicked. And why did I panic? Maybe I wasn't ready for someone to actually be here. And there's a lot of things you could think about. But it just starts with thinking about each fight. You know, it's as simple as that. You just start thinking about each fight. Okay, at this distance, 22 meters. Then you take the fight and you go, did that feel comfortable or uncomfortable? How did I take the fight? Was that comfortable or not comfortable? And if you have these set plans before you even take the fight, not only do you win them more often, but you start feeling confident because you already know how you're going to take the fight. And that builds to that intentionality bit. It stops the panic. It stops the stops a lot of things, honestly. Mostly panic though. So when you go into a deathmatch, for example, one way to like practice holding is when you're listening to people run up stairs, for example, and you hear a guy, you just hold your crosshair, and you just think about the fundamental of holding. Well, how do you want to hold? Well, firstly, you want to hold where you think he will peek. So if he's running, you want to peek slightly wider, like you want to have your crosshair slightly wider. If he's like stopped making sound, you want to be closer, right? And then when he does peek, you want to be holding your crosshair very like steady, so that when he walks into your crosshair, you're just clicking. And that's one thing that you can practice. So let's talk about the range drills and stuff like that, and then I'll just stop yapping and you can have about your day and you can do your own thing. Do you have any questions for any of that, by the way?
I'm supposed to be able to see deathmatch coaching, for example, in your server, because I don't.
No, this is my private server.
Oh, okay.
You should see mechanics coaching, coaching students, master fundamental notes. This is like a half written up. I need to do more of this, but you should see this channel. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You should.
Yeah.
This goes over each mechanic, each fundamental mechanic, and like just, you know, tells you exactly what to do. And in the future, I should put out some videos of like, what does this look like, right? So what does a jump spot look like? What does shoulder peeking look like? What does jiggle peeking look like, for example? And these are like info, advanced, context-based movements. What does a wide swing look like? And I've noted it here. So a wide swing, for example, if I've noted it correctly. Oh shit. If I've noted it correctly, so a deady peek, for example, is you want to pre-aim, peek into an angle, and be ready to shoot when you peek into someone, and then preferably as much like isolated gunfight as possible. But yeah, that's all there. And if you have questions for any of this, by the way, feel free to ask. And we can kind of get into the actual mechanics way more. But I think for you right now, it's just building the intention behind it. It's just building that thought that like, when I am going to do this, am I ready for it? Like, when I do this, am I really ready for it? Like, if that makes sense. So let's talk about practice, the range, things like this. How do you develop these skills a bit more? So this is the thing that I was talking about, and you probably haven't really used this, to be honest. Not many people do, but it's really, really good actually. So this range is 5 meters. so 5 meters, and you realize that you can spray, and it's very like it's very good, right? You just spray and you kind of hit, right? So at 10 meters, maybe you spray and you can find what you're comfortable with. At 10 meters, 20 meters, same kind of thing. Maybe you spray and you realize that like all the bullets are off. I don't feel very comfortable spraying at this distance. And then you make a plan. Well, okay, at 20 meters, I don't want to spray because I feel uncomfortable. So 30 meters, you start doing these like 2-tap bursts. You see what is accurate at 2-tap bursts. At 50 meters, you just figure out what's comfortable for you at the different distances, and then you can go into custom and we could do what you talk about, right? So abuse that. It's very, very good. There's some different ways to like practice. For example, if you want to practice steady peeking, like doing something like this is good because you can practice that intentionality of just like peeking. This is something I kind of figured out you can do. Oh my god. It's not perfect, it's not great, but it is something that you can do and it's kind of fun to do. But again, you could do it here as well. So go across, like try and like minimize how many bots you see. You could do this with a sage wall too.
Yeah.
Where you put it in the center and then you do these like jiggles, right? And then you get wider. So for example there, I wasn't ready to peek him, so after I peeked him, you see how I went to him and then went off? Because I was gonna peek again, like I kind of want to avoid that, so when I do peek into something, I want to be ready to shoot them. So here I kind of expose myself a bit too much. You see what I mean? But you can use these walls to like really think about how you decide to peek. Go away. Some other ways to develop like stability training is definitely using like warm-up techniques and stuff like this. So tracking the bot is something that you've probably noticed is good when you're doing warm-ups. So this is what I kind of tend to do. I tend to track the bot, try and aim it for this like tiny section here if you want something very specific, and be smooth as possible. When you're kind of done with that, you can move on to these kind of movements where you're doing this dead zone, and make sure that you're like accurate as possible is really what you're looking for. I'm not sure there's one bot is moving and the rest are not. But this is good for just like general practice, warm up, getting used to the game. Obviously doing static like this is totally fine. And try just, again, intentionality is the key part here, where you really just want to be on the bot, not like me, where I am clearly not. And then you can do it in different ranges, up here as well. So if you want some verticality, something slightly like harder maybe, you can do it up here. But possibly something that for you in stability and maintaining movement stability, come to the middle of a like 50 elims and just trace the bot while you're moving. Actually I wouldn't do this for strafe one. You can if you want to, but it's kind of crazy if you do. So come to the middle and just do the strafe. And this is something you can do to warm up or just generally practice. Try to keep your movement very smooth. Always try to be kind of moving. One thing that I want you to note is that when you're doing something like this, I want you to keep a very clear intention of how you're aiming to the next bot. So for example, when I see that nothing is on my screen right now, I want to do a 180 that is smooth like this, and then go to aim for the next bot.
I feel like I would just flick to the audio cue.
Yeah, it's fine. So, like, just as long as you're processing, okay, nothing is on my screen right now, let's do a 180 and click.
Yeah.
As long as you're processing this, I don't care how you do it, whether it's audio or not. Right? Just that like smoothness is what I would like to see in something like this. And then for something for like strafing is good as well. Where you at? So you can match the movement of the bot. So when the bot moves, you move. And then you really just keep that intentionality on the crosshair. So that you're only really clicking when you know that the crosshair is on their head. When I'm yapping, it doesn't help, but you get what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like this is useful just to get yourself into the game, really. And really use that as much as humanly possible. But I think for you, for right now, is just get your head in the game. Like, ask yourself these questions. Be curious. Because a lot of plateauing and things like this is you already know everything. You've already got it down. You're Immortal Plus. You know everything. You have 3,000 hours. It's now just questioning the habits that you have, right? The difference between someone who is Immortal and someone who's Radiant is the consistency. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Someone who is Radiant is consistently good in basically all aspects of the game. It's their movement is great. Their aim is like fine, I guess. You don't need to have great aim, but everything else is good. Their game sense is great at all times, and it's because they built these good habits over long periods of time. You know which habits that you need to change, break, like even just like differentiate. You know which which things that you need to do differently. You already have the experience. It is now just like kind of reforming some of those mindsets into something more positive or something different. In the same way that I know that you praise Viscos, and this is something that she said in one of her videos. At some point in aim training, you already understand all of the fundamentals. It is just reframing what you already know to become even more efficient. And that happens at about master level, I think, or something like that, where you already understand all the fundamentals for aiming. It's now just like, okay, what can I do differently? It's that tension, like the micro tensions in your wrist and your arm and things like this, and it's things that you have to like think about, but it's nothing massive. It's nothing new. It's everything you already know. It's just reframing it into a way that is more efficient, basically. So it's for you right now in your gameplay, it's like when you peek an angle, are you doing it with intention? Are you ready to kill someone when someone is there? I know for a matter of fact, I've watched you play, you're a good player. I know for a fact that you know how to slice the pie in angles. This is why I'm not going over it super heavily, because I trust that you already know that, and I'm happy to, don't get me wrong. If you want me to go over these more in-depth like examples of like basic mechanics, I'm more than happy to, do not get me wrong. But I feel like if I asked you to do a wide swing, I think you would do it correctly. I think you would, you would peek into the angle, you would like trace the guy, and you would tap them when you were ready to do that. The reason why I don't think you do that right now is because it's not set in your mind just yet. It's not something that you're kind of like used to doing just yet. You know what it is, you know what to do, and now it's all about basically just doing it, right? Would you agree with me, or am I wrong? Am I completely wrong? Am I missing the vibe?
I mean, I think with self-reflection, it's always hard, right? But like for me anyway, there's like a few things that I guess like inherently, like I don't think you're wrong. Like especially in Valorant, maybe not in aim training quite yet, right? But with like Valorant, especially, maybe not perfect mouse control, but like I feel like yeah, if you ask me about like every fundamental concept that's core to every player, right? Like yeah, I have, or I at least know of all the tools, right? Am I perfect at all of them? Clearly not. But I think, yeah, I think there is definitely that disconnect where it's like, okay, I know how to do everything, but it's not incorporated, or certain things aren't incorporated the way they should be, I guess. In terms of like, okay, well, I know how to wide swing, and I do wide swing pretty often. I would say maybe not in deathmatch, but like I know in comp, like if I'm dealing with an op and we don't have util to get them off the line, I generally wide swing the angle, right? Because what else can I do? I'm not gonna like jiggle peek an or not jiggle, but like I'm not gonna like dedicated peek an op. Like I'm just asking to die, right? But
White
like
swinging an AWP is crazy. White swinging an AWP is even crazier than daddying.
no, because the thing is like most oppers, if they're good, at least in my opinion, like I can stream this, but like if I'm holding an angle as an opper, like let's say I'm holding like this angle and I know that like this is as far as they can go back, the idea is that you should always be pre-aiming like this walk, right? So if someone like, because you should be pre-aiming for someone coming from back here. So the intention with this is if you don't like, obviously the best way is drone him off, flash him, whatever, right? But if you don't have these tools, then the next best thing, at least in my opinion, and from what I see most people agree with, is like op should be holding like this line. And so the idea is you always want to like offset the swing, right? Because the hardest flick for an opper is like this one, right? Because you don't want to flick away like further than your crosshair is. I mean, that's it. I think it's at least in my opinion. I could be wrong, so feel free to correct me. But it's the same reason why like we like to hold wide here if we expect a wide swing, right? Or like if we're in an off angle, we hold wider because we don't want to make more corrections to our right. We generally want to like keep anything, or like in this scenario, we want to keep anything to how far we're keeping our crosshair from the wall. So our range of adjustment is from like inside. I can't ping, but inside like this box would be like where we're looking to adjust to, rather than like the opper has to hit this flex shot, which yes, keep in mind, good oppers will hit this more consistently than not, but it's better odds than just like dedicated peeking properly, because with proper technique you would just walk into their crosshair and the opper should have you dead to rights, right? So like, but yeah, I would say like fundamentally I have like, okay, if you want me to wide swing, it's just like trace, shoot. Or like sometimes you can throw like wide, like, and then, you know, the prim EP, which is fat finger. But like you can throw in like a crouch to offset their aim even more. But like as long as you give yourself time to line up a shot, then it's fine. But like at the same time, if I'm peeking the same angle but dedicated, like I can do all these things, and I agree with that fact. It's just like it's not like I don't understand basic game mechanics, right? But I agree with the sentiment. Like, okay, I think I approach like every gunfight kind of the same. Well, not every gunfight, but when I'm expecting a gunfight, I think it's pretty common. You'll see me just like I'm out, and even like I think in warm up you'll see a like not death match, but in the warm up to death
So what
match
do
you'll
you
see like
disagree
okay.
with?
Hmm?
So what do you disagree with what I said? Because it sounds like you disagree with me.
Did I say anything?
Not necessarily, but I feel like you are confused or like disagree with what I am saying when it comes to current practice. Like, would you if I just left you now, would you know what to practice?
That probably not actually. So I like obviously I can come here and then do this thing, and I can learn like okay, my gunfight hygiene can improve with that. I guess like for me it's like what okay, so like okay, I come here, I work on, you know, how I want to take what fight where. That's like step one. Then I can go through customs, which I've also done with the help of Zasco priorly. Like where I
That's
like
good.
dedicated a lot of angles. Peek just walking around customs for like 30 minutes like per map or something, just like walking around peeking stuff. I guess like it's hard for me personally. The one thing I will say is like I don't understand, I guess, always peeking with the intention to kill. Like I get that it's the correct concept, don't get me wrong. My thing is how do I develop that habit like in like because in my brain in customs when I do it, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to shoot someone. But like when I like am in comp and I'm like peeking angle, sometimes I like just like peeks. I mean, it's the example you saw in Pearl Be Long, right? Like I saw the Phoenix Cubby and then I like did a double take. And I guess like how do I work on
Pacing.
improving that as like the practice?
It's pacing. So when you're in a custom game, you can develop it like this, and let's work through this together. This is generally something that I do with everyone when it comes to intention, and this is how I teach it. So let's go to par, like we mentioned before, and let's just simply work on that intention. So in your gunfights, I'm sure that if you know Zasco, then you would know this kind of routine that he would show. Have you had a session with Zasco before?
Yes.
What did he teach you?
His was just telling me to like slice the pie more because like in the deathmatch example, for example, or even just in comp in general, he said that like too many of my fights were just like wide swings with like just like okay, I'm gonna peek them and I'm gonna kill them because I think I'm better rather than like okay, like you need to like be more dedicated in terms of like clearing angles like properly. And like part of the issue with me for that one was like I think in deathmatch I did fundamentally play differently, and I don't disagree with his point where he's like, yeah, when you play like deathmatch, it's building in repetitions, right? Because you're gonna obviously move around the map more than in a comp game. But like, because his thing was like, oh, like you don't know how to like, or at least according to the deathmatch that he saw, he was like, oh, you don't know how to contact space or whatever, like in terms of like. But I would say like, I think fundamentally I do understand that, and it's a large part of like if I'm playing Sentinel, like I know how to contact while like lurking certain plays, right? And so, but like his big point was like, yeah, just slice the pie more so you get like more information rather than every fight just being wide swing simulator. I
Yeah.
guess if that makes sense.
So I am friends with Zasco. We've talked about mechanical coaching. We have different styles. We have different opinions, and yeah, I think our opinions definitely differ when it comes to death matches. I take into account negotiables a little bit more. So if I don't hear anyone, I'm happy just to run around the map a little bit more carelessly, a little bit more like whatever, carefree. And Zasco avoids this as much as humanly possible and believes that in every gunfight you should be peeking with intent to kill. And I'm on both pages for if whatever you want to do. However, it depends on what you're practicing. If you need a warm-up, for example, if you're just warming up, I'm happy for you just to run through the game and feel like just feel the crosshair, right? I'm happy for you to do this, but you need to have that intention in mind. You need to be thinking like, okay, I want to take this fight, you know, in this certain way. I want to just warm up, right? I'm just getting a feel for the map. I'm not really like playing whatever. I'm just, you know, you get what I mean. When you want to practice wide peeking, for example, I want you to then start developing this skill where you hear them tower, for example, or you hear them CT pushing you. You do this like little jiggle, you get information, and you peek and you do the wide swing. And you do this in most fights, right? And then you develop that skill over a period of time and in your deathmatch. And what Zasco talks about is this this peeking technique, which he praises very, very highly, where you basically stop, aim, shoot. And this is something that he talks about a lot. So when you go to peek into something that you are just fully dedicated into the angle, and this is what he calls slicing the pie. So that when you do go into the angle, and I think it is good for players who are not as good as Immortal Plus, and this is something that I critiqued Zasco on. But I don't think that this style of like stop, aim, shoot is always good. I think there it has to be nuance. So he likes to coach it so stop aim shoot is always good, and I coach it so stop aim shoot is good, but when it comes to Immortal Plus, you need to think about it slightly deeper because you are getting to the stages where you are really, really good, right? And you can think about it deeper. So I'm thinking about this kind of gunfights. If I do this, am I ready for a gunfight? Well, I can think about dead zoning here actually, right?
Yeah.
But you need to have the intention of doing this, and this is what I think is really important: is the intention. I don't mind if you peek and you hold this. I don't care if you do this jiggle and you're ready for a dead zone when they do peek, right? I don't care if you're Zlasko and you stop aim shoot if someone is there, right? And you rely on your micros. I don't care. I want to know that you're intentionally doing the thing that you just did. I want to know for a fact that when you peeked into this guy, you were ready for a fight and you killed them because of that. Or you whiffed because of your aim was bad. But the intention that you did to take that fight was good. So when you're running around the map like aimlessly like this, I'm thinking about your intention. Why are you doing this? Why are you in the middle of the open taking these gunfights? Is it because you know that there's someone here and you don't hear anyone over there, and therefore you know that it's okay to be safe in the open and you're just taking your gunfight and you're committed to it? Or are you just in the middle of the open because you've no idea what you're doing and there's people everywhere? These two different things are completely different for me personally when it comes to my coaching style. So I'll look at your aim, I'll look at like everything, I'll look at your general like gunfight techniques and things like this. I'll look at your fundamentals, see if you understand everything. And then if you don't understand something, I'll go into a custom and I'll show you it. So for you, when Zasko talks about this style, I want you to think about it slightly differently. It's the pacing that you're currently missing. It's when you stop into this angle, I want you to clear this in your head. So I go to peek into this angle, nothing there. So I'm now prepared for the next one. Peek, okay, nothing there. Peek, okay, nothing there. I'm going to walk up into the next angle, tracing the angle as I go. Okay, I'm prepared for the next one. Peek, okay, nothing there. Swing, peek, okay, nothing there. Ready for the next fight. No, ready for the next fight. Maybe clear these like off angles with like jiggles. Intentionally clearing them with jiggles, so that when I do see someone, I can maybe dead zone them. But otherwise, that maybe wide swing because there's a guy here. Because I saw a guy here. Okay, nobody here, but blah 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 blah. Peek. Okay, nobody there. Peek. Okay, nobody there. And if you notice you're moving on too quickly, you slow it down by 10%. If you peek into this guy, but then you go to peek into here, but there's a guy here, this is your pacing that's going wrong. So when I peek into the Phoenix here, this is me not taking this fight. So this is me going, this is me doing the step where I'm like, so okay, I'm prepared for the fight, I'm ready for the fight, peek, and then if I move along like this, but there was a guy there, I didn't take my time to process visually if someone was there. So in a deathmatch, what I would do is every time you go to take angle, okay, nobody there. Okay, nobody there. Okay, nobody there. Okay, nobody there. Okay, someone's actually there. Now we're going to do the tapping pre-plan that we just made in our heads from the range. Okay, I've killed them. I'm going to move up. Okay, nobody there. Okay, there's actually nobody on B right now. Notice how I didn't clear anything? I didn't care. But my intention was, I know that nobody's here because I haven't heard anyone. I don't care. Right? So I'm not like Zasko, where Zasko would tell you, clear everything with great intent to kill. And I'm so down if you want to do this. I'm totally fine with this. But you just need to have, like, in my opinion, you just need to have that intention of what you're going to do. I think it's exhausting to have that mindset where you have to do everything perfectly. I think it's wrong and not great. So I think having...
Yeah, this is why, so part of my thing with Zasko, like I had a session and I like understood the crux of what he was trying to say. But my problem is like, okay, if I'm in an in-game situation and I know like, okay, B site is clear, I'm not walking around like shift clearing everything, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
If I hear, for example, I'm on C site Lotus, I hear the Vise walk away, like, okay, or run away rather. Like, I'm not clearing C site.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, But like basically, like in his head, he's like, oh, like clear, clear, clear everything, and I'm like, okay, but in game, why would I like if I know this area is clear?
Mm.
I'm like, it's complete wasted movement that like,
Yeah.
and if you watch like pro players play, if they assume something is clear, they're not gonna put their crosshair there.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if they know something's clear, they're not gonna put their crosshair there. And so for me, it was always like, okay, if I play deathmatch this way, it's like all I'm doing is like moving in slow motion. Like I understand like okay, I like to clear this angle, and sometimes yes, you're gonna need to do it. I don't disagree. Like if you know there are people in this region, or if you're in your head you're simulating, okay, you don't have info, then yes, I agree that like clearing everything makes sense. But then in situations where like I just spawned in, I don't want to clear everything because I just looked at my mini map and I saw 3 red dots nowhere near me. Like
Hmm.
I know they're not here. Why am I clearing these angles like this? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
So
like, yeah,
so the difference between this and me and like Zasco in this case is that I'm happy for you to move as long as it's intentional. So when I look at a VOD, I look at intention. That's all I care about, generally speaking. If I see you taking a fight like this and you just like do the plan that you made in your head, like you say that like, oh, you know, I have this plan at 25 meters where I'm going to spray, and you do spray and you crouch spray and stuff like this, and you tell that to me, and it's like an intentional thing you do, and maybe we go, okay, well, can we look at something like a different option, like maybe we look at something else, right? But other than that, I don't care about the fight. I don't care about how you went into it, really, because as long as you went into it with the right intention to do the fight, so you go to peek him, maybe you wide swing and then you whiff and then you start doing your plan, but you tell me like, oh, I had this plan to crouch and swing, and this was intentional. Then we can talk about the intention behind why you would crouch and swing. You know what I mean?
okay.
Um,
Okay. Is it possible for you to like walk through with me in terms of like I know you just went through the idea in the range, but is it possible that like we can just do that together and figure out a plan for my shooting, I guess, if that makes sense?
I'm down for it, but it's entirely personal.
Yeah.
And I just did what I showed you. I literally sat there for like maybe half an hour, and I just went, well, what is accurate for me? And it's like, what did I personally find accurate? It was like, okay, at this ranges I found it comfortable just to tap. At this ranges I found it comfortable, like I was happy to like adjust my sprays off when I was moving, and it's just how you feel. There's not
Yeah.
like a right or wrong answer really, but yeah, we can go over it if you want.
My ult's ready.
Yeah. Because the other thing I was, I guess, like curious about, I moved it. That's why it looks weird. Yeah. Another thing I was like curious about is like a thing that's always been like when I go back and look at a lot of my fights, I feel like I rarely lose because my aim is bad, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
at least going back to my own VODs.
Yeah, that makes
Like,
sense
'cause, like,
you're an aimer.
Yeah, because like if I go into a VOD and look, it's like almost very rarely that it's like, okay, I whiffed. It's like I whiffed, but it's because I didn't expect the fight. Or like
Yeah.
because if I watch myself when I expect fights, it's almost like instant headshots. Like
Yeah.
for example, like warm up, and I was like, okay, there's a guy peeking me like B long pearl. I'm gonna just like peek out and one tap him or something like that. And like I'm just wondering because it'd be cool to have an outside opinion. Is it like, do you see that too, or is it like, okay, no, your aim is still holding you back even in fights that you
I
like
have never
have
said
fun?
that your aim is holding you back.
Okay. No. I'm just asking for like, like, because like obviously now I think I've spent quite a bit of time in Kovacs over the last while. Like it's still helpful, don't get me wrong, but like it's something that like, okay, maybe I need to put more server time rather than like, like
Always
outside
server
help.
time. Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I coach someone, it's always about what you're doing in game. And I'm not an aim coach. Let me tell you this. I'm not an aim coach.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm not even plat complete in the voltaic benchmarks. I don't play the voltaic benchmarks, to be fair, but I'm not plat complete. I am not an aim training coach. I have a playlist that you can play, and I built it with Anima, who is who is an aim training coach, who is incredibly good at aim training. I'm sure you probably have heard of them.
Yeah.
But when I look at your gameplay, it's just about what you're doing in your game. Are you taking the fights intentionally? Are you doing the right mechanics? How are you doing the mechanics? Are you comfortable with the right things? And then I look at your aim technique. So, for example, for you, it was your tension and your it was your tension, it was your stability, and it was your first bullet accuracy. So in your notes, if you look, your self-assessment checklist looks like this. In your aim training, I want you to try and do the stability and target confirmation playlists, and really like focus on specifically target confirmation, because I feel like you might struggle with that a little bit. And do a range warm up, and this is just to get you confident in your mechanics. You are good mechanically, and so I just want you to have that focus before you play a comp game, just understanding that you are good, right? That's it. And to get you into the groove of playing the game. So then deathmatch practice, I want you to just focus on playing calm. Literally just focus on being not tense, on understanding where people are around the map before you take fights. When you peek, visually acquire the enemy, then aim for the head, and then set yourself these goals where you are only tapping, or you're only doing 2-tap bursts during death matches, and this will force you forcing yourself to do only tap or only 2-bullet bursts will force you to play calm firstly, or try to, and it will stop you from doing this crouch sprays you've been doing. And then when you take these fights, I want you to be asking these questions. Did I take that fight with intent to kill? So for example, when you peeked into this Phoenix back here, I would expect you to do this. So you peeked into him and then you did this, right? This movement. You mentally know whether or not you were intentful on the fight. So whether or not you took the fight good after that is totally up to you. And you might think, okay, so I peeked into the Phoenix, I then moved. I wasn't ready to actually fight him.
Yeah.
But my gunfight hygiene was good because I maintained the taps. What do I want to do in my next gunfight? Well, I want to make sure that I am visually ready for the fight. How do I do this? Just a little bit slower, right? Just take that extra second or so before you fight, because then you suddenly realize, okay, well, my gunfight technique is good. My taps are fine. And this is how you develop everything at the same time, and it's kind of hard. But it's possible if you ask yourself the right questions and you're really patient with yourself. And that patience is really, really key. And so when you do take this fight, suddenly you realize that you've slowed this down, firstly. So you've now peaked with intent to kill. You're now doing these tap bursts because that is your plan. And suddenly you have good mechanics that are really consistent because you have a plan before you even peak them. And you've practiced this in deathmatch a lot. And that's really all it comes to now. It's just practice. You know what to do. And it's now how effective is your practice. So because you've ordered 3 sessions from me, we have the time to go over each fundamental specifically. We have the time to go over, if you are struggling specifically with wide swings, for example, we can go over that specific fundamental. So in this first session, we're talking about intention, and now in your next deathmatch, maybe a week or 2 from now, I don't really care how long it takes for you to however long it takes for you to feel like you're comfortable moving on, getting new ideas, feeling like you're taking each fight with intention, asking yourself the right questions. I then will come back to you with I want you to come back to me with another VOD, like deathmatch VOD, and in each fight you should be taking it way more intentionally, right? I should see when you want to peek into heaven, you stop and you peek and you prepare, right? And you have less moments, not none, because it's impossible to have none. Less moments where you're like WADing an angle, for example, you're just not ready, right? So when you peek into like long, for example, you don't want to do this, right? You know it's bad. I want to see less of this because you are more intentional in the fights that you're going to take. So you would end up naturally doing something that is better than what a noob would do, right?
Yeah.
And it's just because you're more aware. So I'm happy to go over your gunfight hygiene right now if you really want to do that. I don't think is necessary. I think that's something you do in your own time, and you just feel what's right for you, and you just work on that, and you just work on that as a like something that you're curious with.
Okay.
Again, if you want to do that right now, I'm happy to do that. I'm not sure what you would want from me though, because it would literally just be me sat here going, how did that feel for you? Like, is that something you feel like you could control? When you do a spray at this distance, do you feel like you can control that? And then I think one thing that might be helpful for you to go into right now is you can go into a deathmatch right now if you want, and we could talk about your intention each fight. I'll just ask you, like, did you feel like you took that intention, like that gunfight with intent? And I think that would be more helpful than going into and sitting in the range right now. So if you want to do a deathmatch for me right now, we should do that.
So yeah, that probably would be. Because the one thing I will say is, like, I got help through some of my aiming plateaus, like more recently through like more intentional coaching, I guess. Because like fundamentally, I don't think I'm like misunderstanding. Like obviously, I don't have full comprehension. There is a reason I'm still like Jade, but like I have. Oh, I'm on North Virginia again. But like I generally understand the concepts. Is kind of similar in Valorant, where like if you ask me about something in the game, like I'm not gonna be able to like not tell you anything about it, I guess. But like sometimes it is helpful to just have like that guidance, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
To be like,
So,
okay, well,
in this dash
I'm
match,
doing
just lock
something.
in, and I want every motion to be intentional. So when you go it, so when you take a fight, just listen, and then just take the fight. Like, and again, everything is okay. So I will remind you, you can take each fight as carefully and precise as you want, or you can run around, but it has to be, you know, you have to know what you're doing. So I'm gonna stop yapping, and I want you just to talk to me after each kill. Did I feel like that I took that fight with intent? And that's all I want. That's the only question I want you to be asking.
Okay, no, that one was not.
So did I feel like you? Did you feel like you took that fight with intent?
Dominating.
I mean that one against the neon, I think I did. It's just bad angle holding technique. Personally, I could be wrong there, but
No, just
I
tell
think I was.
tell me. Did you feel like you were mentally in that fight?
Yeah.
I feel no empathy.
I felt
What
like
does that say about me?
I was good there
It was
in terms of
no
understanding
more
where my
theory.
fights were. Ew. That was bad. Didn't figure out the gunfight hygiene necessary there. I think that one was fine. I think that one was fine.
I'll let you know. I'll ask the question if I feel like I need to.
Okay.
Just lock in. Play your best. You crouched there. Was that intentional?
Yeah. To
Fine by me.
re-offset the crosshair placement.
Has been.
Trying to press tab, by the way. Just focus
Irrelevant.
fully on the fights that you're taking.
Ew.
Do you think we could
What
wide
the-
swing there?
Yes. I think I should have just, yeah. I think I did, and then I just crouched anyway. Oops.
Yeah, so things like that, that's what you want to look out for in your gameplay, that you can look to change. That is where like intention is really key. And you want to try and break that habit.
Has been.
Oops. My fault.
Pinpoint. Close in timeout.
When you tab, it's a sign for me that you're not fully in control, like you're not fully focused. And it should be a sign for you too.
Just die.
Nice.
Shame.
Good. Panic spray.
Yeah.
Okay, now focus in again because we're double king. So again, intention for each fight.
So long, speed. Close in time.
10 kills remaining.
Ew.
Deficient. Obsolete. Futile.
Bro, what?
It's gotta be.
Bro!
Five kills remaining.
That's a tough fight on the brim.
There's people right there. Oh. Oh.
Deficient.
Alright, gun out. I want you to be focused in every fight.
One kill remaining.
This is it.
So
One
good.
left.
How did you feel about that?
Oh,
Satisfied.
I think most of the
Well done.
fights were pretty good, intentional, at least shooting. I think the movement was a little wonky throughout, but
Yeah.
I think shooting wise there was intention. At least.
if we looked at that VOD together today and compared to the VOD that we just had, and I hope that my recorder, I recorded that properly, you would see a massive difference in how you took each gunfight. That alone is going to make you win more and be more consistent. So a couple of things I want to note is that, like, yes, you still definitely seem a bit tense at times. I think you can definitely think about how you take gunfights a little bit differently, a little bit more. There's definitely a bit more spraying that I see. You definitely do have this spraying like style currently, where you feel very comfortable to spray. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but is it something that you want to do? It's totally up to you. Do you know Adora? In
Yeah.
the GC scene? Yeah, very similar kind of thing. She's an incredibly strong player. Has this, when I first looked at her deathmatch, has, like, this was a while ago though, so she might have changed, but she has like this similar, very comfortable to spray at a lot of distances kind of style, but very consistent still. So anything can work if you are comfortable with it. And so now it's just developing and that ideas, all of the ideas that I've just like kind of given you. When you take the gunfight, is it intentional? If you played every single game like that and how you just did, thinking about each gunfight as you just did, you will like find consistency. And if you start to refine each of your mechanic skills, you will find even more consistency. So this is the mentality that I like for you to have as much as humanly possible. When you take each fight, you ask yourself, okay, was that intentional? Was that something I meant to do? That's all you have to ask yourself. Was that something I meant to do? So was that spray something I meant to do? Was the crouching something I meant to do? And you just look at yourself as if you are, your own coach almost. And the best way to do this realistically is to VOD review yourself. And if you do not feel like you are picking that up, you just VOD review yourself. You go, okay, what do I look like actually to me? And that might be something you need to do if you don't feel like you can self-analyze while playing, and that's fine. Like, a lot of people can't do that. So go record a VOD where you're intentionally taking each fight, and then go look back on it, and you see, okay, well, I was spraying in this gunfight. I didn't feel comfortable with that gunfight at the time because I remember it. How do I want to take that gunfight in the future? Or I was wide swinging here, but I had the intention, like, I should have wide swing here, and I know the right thing to do here was wide swinging, but instead I crouched. Was this something that I was like intentional to me? If not, then how do you want to like go to fix that, really? Like, how do you want to stop doing that? Does that all kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? Or do you just kind of want to sit through it and kind of like think about what's just been said, because it's a lot. It's an info dump, really.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely need to take some time to reflect. Especially some of the stuff about mindset, I think. I think that's some of the stuff that probably just needs to be revisited. Because I don't think that it's a coincidence that, like, while like not horrible, I guess, at anything that I like really spend time and focus on, like playing Valorant a lot, I hit Immortal, or like playing Aim Trainers a solid chunk now. I like get to a point where like it's definitely not bad. Like, if you ask the average person to, be where I'm ranked, or, in certain things, like, I think it'd be fine, right? Like, most people would be happy with where that is. But I don't think it's a coincidence that I've stagnated at that point. But also, I feel like I've kind of had the issue where I like pick up like the basics of something really quickly, or like fundamentally understand something really quickly, but like it's the nitty-gritty that I always have the hard part learning, and like I always struggle with that. So I definitely think I need to take some time and revisit just the mindset portion, just because I think, as you've said repeatedly today, basically, like, a lot of it has. Are there optimizations that I could make? Absolutely, but I think fundamentally part of the problem is beyond just intention is not just intention in the game, but it's the intention, I guess, that comes from the mindset.
Mm.
Like the intent to improve, there's like a desire to improve, but there's not been the correct intentional practice, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Like I've spent time, like I think hours show themselves, but like plenty of time trying to, or plenty of hours with the idea that I want to improve, but I've never really like I've always directed it at like a lot of things without really understanding like the root of the problem is like, oh, for example, I have, the wrong mindset or, I'm not
Mm.
peaking with intention, that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, definitely need to, sit down and reflect for that at least.
If there was like maybe one or two like big parts of the session, what would you say you kind of learned from the session?
Um, I mean, you know, mental is important. I mean, obviously, I knew that to some extent, but
Hmm.
it's obviously a bigger part than I gave it credit for. The other thing that I'd say I take away from this session is like, I mean, actually, no, I'm not gonna say the other thing. Along with the first point, I need to stop giving myself like ways out, I guess.
Mm.
If I want to improve, I just need to tell myself like, hey, if I made a mistake, I need to fix it. And kind of stop just, being accepting of the fact that, okay, I have a bad habit, right? I need
Mm.
to go out of my way and be like, hey, I need to just tell myself like, hey, this isn't okay. Like, you need to fix this as soon as possible. Rather than just like, I'm working on it. Like, yeah, I don't disagree with that point, and I think that's a pretty major point, honestly.
Mm.
Um, because to be honest, when you give yourself that kind of mindset, now that I'm more thinking about it, you kind of place a cap on yourself. Does that make sense? Like, even if
Yeah.
you could be a lot better, it's just like you're accepting of the fact that it's like, hey, it's not perfect, but I'm okay with not being perfect,
Yeah.
or like not being better, I guess, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's that's one major point that I would take away from this. The other thing is, um, I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense that it's called tension and intention. But the other thing is intention in the game matters a lot. Not just the fact that, you know, it's a big deal with how you intend to improve outside the server, but inside the server it also matters like, hey, okay, like this gunfight is here, so I need to take it this way. Or like, hey, I just got caught off guard. What should my base like reaction be? Or should I have a one reaction for every time I'm caught off guard, or should it be different based on if I can get back to where I'm getting like shot from in surprise?
Mm.
Every fight should be different rather than just instinctively going, okay, I'm gonna crouch spray because I got lost
Mm.
or like I got surprised. But yeah, I would say intention. So for both, it's just like intention in terms of what I choose to do with my time in both gaming and life. Just like, okay, if I'm spending time on improving on something, I need to make sure that I actually, you know, spread my focus to that rather than just being like okay with being, where I am and just being like, okay, I have a bad habit and that's fine, but I'm working on it. So I need to say, so that's one thing. And then, yeah, the other thing is just, making sure I do stuff in game intentionally
Yeah.
as well.
Cool. I feel like you've got a good grasp of the kind of ideas that I'd like to put down. So in general, how did you feel about the session? Did you feel like it was productive?
I mean, I think it was productive. I especially, think that.
Do you feel like the notes are like easy to understand, like this checklist? Do you think if you read back this checklist, you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I just need to, do this again, or
Yeah. I guess one question I do have. I know you said you're not an aim trainer, like coach slash main, whatever.
hit me?
Yeah. The one thing is like, okay, when you say like visually acquire the enemy, I guess do you like in Valorant? I guess do you ever really consider what's it called, like movement reading at all or anything? Like,
Yes.
do you still keep their peripheral, like, okay, their leg just moved backwards. I'm gonna like move
Uh,
my cursor to the
oh,
left, that kind
okay.
of stuff.
In Valorant, it's a little bit more difficult. In Apex, there's in Apex, for example, there is very obvious movement cues.
Yeah, like
In
their
Valorant,
shoulders
that is
turn.
not the case. In Valorant, there is less movement cues. It's a lot shorter. There is movement reading that you can do, and I think movement reading is important. But in Valorant, it's not as important. Um, this is my opinion right now, and this is subject to change at any point. Movement reading is one of my weakest aim training kind of things right now. But when I am looking into target reading and things like this, I think it is really important because you start to learn. Target reading is more for Valorant is more like, what are they doing right now during the gunfight? Are they just going AD, AD, AD? Are they going D, 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 D? Are they doing these single strafe like strafes? Are they doing all these different things? And then it's about training your peripherals and like your general kind of like reaction and awareness of that kind of thing. So I think target reading is important, but in Valorant it's not as important as like Apex, for example, where it is very massive and
Yeah.
it's very big. But again, subject to change. I think that opinion. I think when it comes to like visually acquiring your enemy, I more mean like when you go to peek someone, are you seeing the enemy, aiming, and then killing them? Basically, are you seeing the enemy? Are you like when you in the Primy clip, for example, and I'm happy to send this to you. Are you visually doing this? Are you going, okay, Sky's on my screen, Clover's on my screen, and now I know, now I want to take the fight? You know what I mean? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
This is visually acquiring the enemy. This is him processing, okay, on my screen is a Sky, on my screen is a Clove. How do I want to take this fight? And then the intention behind that is the key to it all, really.
Yeah, because like one thing in particular, like in the Primy clip, for example, that I've been trying to take more notice of, if you like look at the Primy clip, you can kind of see the Clove's like leg outstretched, I guess, if you see
Yeah.
in vent, like you see it outstretched. So in Valorant, the one thing that you actually can see based on, seeing the target, is you can see like the legs snap back when they're strafing the other way, if that makes sense. Like if you slow it down drastically, like you can see that. And so that's something I've been trying to focus more on.
I think it's
Um,
too minor to be
yeah,
a efficient focus. I think there are so many
yeah,
more things that are more important to focus on than whether or not someone's leg moves. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
In Apex, I think that is something that you can think about a bit more because it is massive. It is huge, and it can determine a fight because of the long time to kill. In Valorant, you don't have the time. You don't have the luxury to be thinking about whether or not someone's leg is moving.
Yeah.
You
Well, I just
have.
mean more like a peripheral vision thing, right? Like it's not something that is like my main focus, but it's something that I've noticed because it's like significantly before the character's model starts moving the other way, if that makes sense.
If this
So
is
just like
something
if
that
it's
you're able to just do, I don't have enough experience to tell you whether or not that is a good idea to something to like at all focus on. I'm going to tell you right now that it's something that's bad because I don't think it is good. Like I think when I tell you that it is bad, I'm telling you that there is tons of more stuff that is more important than whether or not someone's legs moves, right? So like
yeah,
game sense, for example, your utility, your timings for the when you peak, for when you all these different things, the intention, blah blah blah.
mhm,
This is the things that are going to impact your game way more than whether or not you can read someone's moving left or right in a
mhm,
gunfight. And
yeah,
that is speaking from someone who is a mechanical aim coach and is aspiring to be as best possible for mechanics. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And these tiny details are really important. Yes, sure, you can read it, peripherals, blah blah blah, but there's so much more that you just have to think about before all of that. And a lot of where people kind of start going wrong is forgetting that some things are just more important than others. You know what I mean?
okay,
So
sure,
I'd say like, yeah, I mean, if it's something that you can do naturally, then go for it. If it's something that you've noticed, that's great. I think you should definitely keep that in mind that, oh, this is something that I've noticed that I can pick up in game. And if it's something that you could do, then it's something you could do. If it's not, then don't worry about it, and focus on the things that do kind of like would impact your game significantly, significantly more.
Mhm.
I mean, if you feel like you disagree with that, then that's totally up to you. But
No, I mean,
yeah,
I don't disagree actually. I'm just wondering if it's anything you've taken into account by, playing as much deathmatch as you have recently that I've seen on your Twitter. But I mean, if it's not, it's fine, and I think that shows that it's not something that I should be overly concerned with. If it's something I pick up, it's like fine, but not something to.
I think something that is good, actually, now that you kind of mentioned something like that, is when you're holding, for example, one thing that is peripheral but vision based is that you want if you're holding, like, let's say there's a guy here, you're in an off angle, obviously you want to be holding wider. You have a slightly different view to holding than I do. When you're holding something, you're not holding because you want your micro to be different, left and right. So you don't want to be like you don't want to be over flicking, right? And you don't want to be under flicking. I actually think holding, you have to stay stable. The reason why you're holding so wide is because you expect them to run into your crosshair. Nothing more than that. So your peripheral is here, where they're going to run, but your visual is on the crosshair, and so that you're only clicking when the head meets your crosshair. And so you have to have this like calm patience for when they do peek into you, that you're just going to click, basically. That's it. And it just becomes like a reaction time test. And like that is a slight difference between like my thoughts about holding and your thoughts currently, because your thoughts are like, I want to hold here because I don't want to have to micro in a certain direction, and my thoughts are like, I want to hold here because the head is going to be here when they peek, right? So when this person peeks, I want to hold here because I think this person is going to deady like this, so deady into this angle, and look where like the head is there while I'm in this off angle. And the reason why I want to aim here is because when he deadies into that angle, he doesn't know I'm here because I'm in an off angle. He just dies, and I don't have to adjust anything, and it's just fast. And then I can have a plan for when I want what I do when I miss. So, for example, when the Sova was peeking you, and let's say you think he's going to peek wide, but then he jiggles and peeks like here. Well, that's when you want to do this tiny movement that I mentioned earlier. So you shot, you missed, then do this jiggle, and then you hold again. Shot. Right, and then you take it like that. But that's kind of something that we would talk about in a second session when I feel like everything is intentional. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. I guess along with intention, because this is a much more common scenario in game, not deathmatch, I guess. It's very common if you take like a gunfight and you just like take a few pot shots and leave.
Yeah.
Like, would you recommend doing that in deathmatch at all, or is it just like take
I
your
don't care.
fights?
Like I mentioned, I don't care as long as I see that it's intentional. If you really, really, really don't feel like a fight is worth taking in deathmatch, then fine. Like if you feel like there's a guy here and you're shooting this guy and then you hear a guy over here and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take this fight. That is when I would say it's fine. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, but otherwise, yeah, you're totally fine just to commit to the fight. It's deathmatch. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, like just commit to the fight.
Okay.
But
Yeah. I mean, that's how I've always been. Like, committing to the fight is fine. It's just like when I had the session with Zasker, he seemed to think it was not okay. So it's just like, I don't really know how to like interpret that, I guess, because like mechanically he is a stronger player than I am, like on a consistent basis. Maybe not at peak levels, but on a consistent basis. So I'm like, okay, if he thinks that like sometimes you should just disengage, I'm like,
fine, but
it's
have a
just-
reason. That's that's like my whole thing. My whole thing is like everything is okay as long as you have a reason, and that's it. And then we discuss whether or not it's good or bad in a VOD review, and that's what I do in like team VOD reviews. Like the whole basis of team VOD reviews. Like I don't know if you've ever heard of something like this. It's like one person doing a mistake is trolling, but if 5 people do it, it's a plan.
Yeah.
Right? But it's the same that comes to your mechanics. If you do something that feels a bit troll, you know, but you do it with intention to, like, you did it with intention, you did it for a reason. So for example, you know, running gunning is not good, but in some situations it's good, right? Let's say there's a guy here, he's 1 HP. It's so effective, it's so good. And if you did this like in every single fight, that there was a guy in this general direction, I would then question your intention, right? I would then question, like, do you think this is a good thing to do or not? And that's when like the game becomes a bit more complex, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of why I think my sessions take a lot longer than Zasco. Zasco has a 45-minute deadline, I think, and my sessions can take this long, right? But I think it's really important to kind of drill down that idea that like everything is okay as long as you have a plan.
Okay.
So that's my personal opinion, and if you like disagree with that, it's totally fine. But yeah, other than that, how are you feeling about things? Are you happy to end the session here?
I mean, I think you've given plenty of valuable insight. Honestly, maybe more than I've had in quite a while with Valorant. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that I think, honestly, the biggest part of today, as long as I work on figuring out the mental, like, outside of the game, I think everything else will come kind of with it. Like, if I can get back into the right mindset, I feel like it's probably fine. I think you might be right on, like, the one act where I did play, like, well above, like, what I would normally have recently, I guess. I think a lot of it just might have been, like, okay, it might be all the same movements, but I'm much more, like, in tune with the fact that I'm doing it, rather than just, like, I've incorporated the skill and now I'm just kind of autopiloting my skills, if that makes sense. Like,
you're
so,
not thinking about it further.
yeah, because like if I go back and watch a lot of my old VODs, it's like, what am I doing? Like I'll like look and I look better, but I was like shooting better back then, if that makes sense. So like, I think it definitely comes down to some mindset stuff. So
I think the thing is with like the top tier professional players, right? And it's something that I find like fascinating, is that they're constantly learning every single day. So I was watching Zakin VOD earlier, and not earlier, but like a couple of days ago, whatever. I'm always watching different pro players and stuff. But I was watching like a Zakin VOD, and he was full trolling, full tilting. He was angry at the game. He was pissed at his teammates and blah 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 blah. And he like apologized to the stream after for tilting. But you know the one thing that he did that like I'm not sure that many people would do. The thing that he's doing still, he's still going, okay, that was a bad play to make. That was not something I wanted to do. That's not something I intended to do. He literally said that. He was like, that was a misplay. I shouldn't have done that. And he's like, keep in mind, he's tilting through the roof. He's like super tilted at this game, but he's still thinking, fuck, like I'm bad. I've made a mistake. Like he shouldn't be saying I'm bad, but like, you know, that's a micro thing. But like he's saying like, I made this mistake. I did this wrong. Like I entered wrong, or I peaked this wrong, or you know, there is a level of insight that he's doing every single game all the time, and you just don't even notice it because he's doing it so like he's doing it literally all the time, and he just internalizes it. He just thinks all of the time about what he's doing. Literally all the time. There's not a single moment where he's not doing it, and every single professional or top tier player is doing this, even down to like, you know, anyone who's improving all the time. They're always asking the same question. It's just like, did I do this with intention firstly? And it's like, okay, what could I have done better, right? And that whole question, you'll see that in tons of different like YouTube videos. It's like, oh yeah, well, ask yourself what could you have done better. But it doesn't matter if you ask yourself that question if you don't know what you did in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, I'm gonna leave you to that. I think there's been plenty, and I'm very worried that you have scrims soon. I think you should take a break before you play scrims. But yeah, maybe think about some of the things that've been said, and And yeah, I'll get the VOD uploaded to you whenever I get it uploaded. I keep forgetting to stream it to YouTube, so I have to like upload it personally. So fuck my life, but that's fine. That's me issue and not a you issue.
Hopefully next time I won't give you a 720p VOD, but
Oh my gosh, please never do. That's fine. No, don't worry about it.
yeah, I'll try to figure
Um,
out what happened on the first one. But yeah, thank you very much. I think honestly, as as someone who's gotten, you know, his fair share of coaching, I think this is some of the most insightful stuff that I've heard in a while, rather than just like blatantly raw mechanics. You're focused about some other stuff, so
mm.
I thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate that a lot. If you want to drop a positive word in the Discord voucher server, retweet on Twitter, you got coached or whatever, then I appreciate that as well. Anything that like says, oh, like she's done a good job, or whatever, is something that I really appreciate. If there's anything that I could do differently with the sessions, if there's anything that you feel like you were missing, if you like were confused, I'll send you a little like text and you can give a little like short review so I can improve the sessions for longer, for other people and for you in the future, because you have another 2 sessions with me. Imagine 2 more hours of billions of yaps to go. Imagine.
I mean,
But yeah.
I think it was fun, so I wouldn't complain. End of the day, it's up to you, your discretion. But I mean,
Yeah, of course.
thank you for blocking out 3 hours for me.
Yeah, no stress at all. How comfortable would you be if I like edited this and put it up to YouTube? Is there any parts that you would want me to edit out, especially like personal life, things like this?
I think other than the part where I said like this part is personal, like the
Yeah,
couple
okay,
minutes
yeah,
around
yeah.
that section, I think everything else is
It's fine.
more
I
than
just
fine.
I just wanted to double check like the personal side of things, like how.
I mean, to be honest, even if it was there, I didn't say anything that. I didn't
No,
say anything.
I
that
did want to
would
cut
be-
you off before you said anything too personal, because again, I'm not like a therapist. And to be fair, a lot of coaching is life coaching. When I give people coaching, sometimes it is just like life coaching. Okay, what's your health like? That
Yeah,
is like
I mean-
coaching, but
I mean, if you're not mentally in the game, it doesn't fucking matter if
yeah, it
you
doesn't matter
fix
what you're doing.
everything.
Like, yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll send you a little text.
honest-
You can write
Yeah.
it. But other than that, just like invite your friends. Tell them to get me some money, because I need it. And yeah, just tell your friends. Say like, wow, she's really good. Give me some tons of really fucking cool insight and blah blah blah, and the best in the world, and etc etc.
Hopefully, I'll get you some rank ups to give you for your voucher at least as well.
Oh hell yeah! Wow, the rank ups are on you. The rank ups are on you. I gotta lie.
Yeah.
I can't lie.
But hey, if the
what you do with the
mindset's-
information is on you. I know my quality is good, so that's
Well, I mean, it's just easier because I know these Valorant brainlets are all about
yeah,
results.
they love
It's
the
like,
they love the results.
no, because when they see this stupid ad for like Poppin's Guide or whatever,
Oh,
it's just
right.
like it's the same reiterated trash that you can
Yeah.
see anywhere on YouTube. It's just like anyone can be baited by just seeing like any fast improvement. So it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah. So
No, I don't. We don't do fast improvement here. Unfortunately, we do slow, methodical, and
hey, we
and
do real
well
improvement
thought.
here
Yeah, we
rather
do real
than
improvement.
So,
At least,
I mean,
at least I try my best to give people advice that they can really follow. But
No, I
yeah,
think
I hope
it's-
you have a good scrim, and let me know how things go over the next week or 2, however long. Obviously, yeah, like I said, a voucher, whatever. Tell your friends about me. I would appreciate that a lot.
sure. After the scrim, I'll definitely drop at least in the Discord channel. I don't think my Twitter has any eyes on it anyway, so I'll definitely drop something in the Discord chat. Though.
Anything is appreciated, even if you just say it. I'll retweet it, and it's impressions. So, yeah, I'm actually gonna post something about mental health soon for Valorant, which is really funny. So I'll drop a thread of like mental soon. It's nothing we haven't really covered, but you'll see maybe a thread today or tomorrow, depending how I decide to refine it or not. Probably do it today. But yeah, okay, cool. Thanks for the VOD and listening to me yap for some hours.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for all the help.
Yeah, no stress, no stress. I'm
Hope the
excited to
next
see
few
you in the
sessions.
next couple sessions and really see how you decide to go about things, because I think I see a lot, like I see some great like improvement on you already. Like in our session, we've already, I mean, you just went into the session, just immediately won. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah.
start taking a bit of intention, immediately won deathmatch. I'm just saying, just saying. So
Yeah, I mean,
you're good. You got some you got some really good mechanics. You got some really good aim. You got some really good some like self understanding, I think. So I'm excited to see where you build yourself. But yeah, it's a journey for yourself, and it really is. And like mindsets and things like this are really difficult, so don't be too hard on yourself when you're thinking about the things that I've said, because it is very emotional, to be honest. And like I definitely noticed a time when you were just like maybe about to cry almost. Like
yeah.
but no, like it really is like yeah, it's a lot to think about, lot to work on, and just take care of yourself, okay? When you're thinking about the things that I've said, again, it is my opinion, and it really is all about how you feel about yourself, the game. And if you have like things like past trauma, things like this, if you feel like that affects you, then really just think about, why, and just put it into an objective scope if you possibly can.
Yeah.
And yeah. All right, thanks for the session. I'll see you
Thank you.
in a couple of weeks. If you have any questions, feel free to just drop me a DM, and we can sort them out. And if it's a week and then you feel like you want a session, or you feel like it's like 3 days and you're already good for another session, then you just let me know whenever you feel like you are ready. If you feel like you don't want a session from me ever again, then well, that's on you.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too.